October 15th, 2018. Boy, the year has flown by. Gee. We have Director Shaw. We have Commissioner Stan Morton. We have Commissioner Kramer. We got our Chairman Roberts coming in. Jason Gillum. We got the two General Counsel, Ms. Page and Ms. Selena Brown. I see Commissioner White in the audience. Let's see. Other guests in the audience. Tell us your name.
So, my name is Ashley Gino. I'm an Assistant General Counsel for Regulatory Board.
Okay. I didn't know who they were.
He's joining us for the first time.
His first meeting.
All right.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Probably a good thing to do on a Monday morning.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman Roberts. With that said and done, we're going to look to General Counsel. Sarah, if you would, please.
Good morning, members of the commission. I'd like to, Shalina, did you want to tell them about what's going on, or do you want to step with the report? Sure. If we have a report for you today, no supplement, so everything should be contained inside of this today. And we are here for questions, and Ashley's here as well because she has a couple represents, I believe, in that section there. So if she is here, available for questions as well.
I noticed we had a lot of business license expired.
Yes.
Is that a trend we're seeing all of a sudden?
There has been, so my general understanding is there have been some problems actually on the state side and the county side. A lot of the counties are moving electronic, and there's been a lot of miscommunications and errors. And most of my dealers have actually been able to prove that out with emails where they've tried to contact. Now, it's not the case for all of them. We're always going through annual inspections. Some people just haven't put them up. But we've had a pretty consistent and across the state consensus that there's been some trouble as different areas have transitioned electronically about getting those up. And so I think that might account for a little bit of the uptick, because you'll even see in my represent section, I've brought a lot back to you from the last meeting because they've produced this evidence and shown where they've talked to the county clerks and things like that, and shown that they've paid on time but never received it in the mail, or it was supposed to be emailed and didn't make it, and just a million different little problems. But it looks like it's starting to slowly get the kinks out. People are starting to get there. I don't know if Shalina saw any other similar things or not.
No, it's most of mine that seem to have issues with their business licenses came out as a result of an inspection. That's where they usually came out, and they didn't even realize it was inadvertent most of the time.
I had a question related to that, because being a dealer and having 5 locations, it's easy to overlook something's posted on your wall. And is there a notification process in which a dealer is notified without inspection? I mean, I know we've learned from one time when we were, it's brought to our attention on the inspection, it was very embarrassing, so now we watch it very carefully. But is there a notification, or it's up to the dealer just to remember when he expires?
That's part of the problem. Is the notifications are coming from the taxing entities, and when they moved electronic, some of them stopped sending paper notifications, and so they weren't receiving them. So those notifications are coming from the counties and from those local jurisdictions.
Chairman Roberts, do you have any questions on the report? Okay, good.
Yeah, I've got a few things. One what we just discussed, and I noticed on cases 12, 15, and 18, they're very similar, and they all seem to be ongoing issues with those dealers. My question is, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff you guys are doing that are not in the text, but I mean, are these dealers active now? Are they active licensed on each of these scenarios where they still can continue to do further harm to the community?
Oh, 12 Madison. Sorry, I'm not supposed to say the name of the dealer. My fault. We've already moved that to TCA, so or FCA, so I'm not too worried about it. But that dealer is closed. Their license is closed, and they are out of business. So he is not doing continued harm. 15. This one's a little different. This one. This was one where it was just a single transfer. within the money was this is purely criminal. A lot of what happens when you see a lot of our large complaints, like number 12. That's someone who's gone upside down on their floor planner, typical stuff. Not always intentional fraud, not always meaning to get into the position they're in, but they are there. And sometimes you'll either see a dealer who stays kind of above board in that they're under with their floor planner, and those that start to revert to moving money around in ways that they shouldn't. And that's usually where you see the criminal tie-in. 15 is more of a pure conversion, took money and vanished. There doesn't seem to have been... that might have happened because of being upside down, but it's definitely more criminal in nature. But there's only one instance of it right now, and it's being litigated, so it hasn't been decided. So that dealer is still open and operating. They have not been prosecuted for that crime yet, and there has only been the one incident. 17 is the same thing as 12. You're dead on right there. That's someone who went upside down on the floor planner. They are currently closed, and their license is listed as closed. And we have already negotiated his agreements on a revocation.
18.
Number 18 is a little different as well. This is let me look. This is a purely unlicensed entity, so that we don't know. So they could be open. We haven't quite been able to figure out who they are, who they're tied to, but we did figure out that they are being investigated. So we wanted to turn this over to the AG's office for the odometer aspects.
And speaking of on bad dealers, is there any updates on the Memphis situation?
Number 18 actually ties into that.
Okay.
The injunction is currently with our Attorney General, and they are reviewing all the documents. It's quite an extensive file, and we just received this new one. That's just something that is that's something we're really looking for. When you move for an injunction, the most important part is to show an ongoing and immediate harm. And so with number 18, we've already, ahead of you all referring, we went ahead and sent it to them already. Just to let you know, I didn't think we wanted to sit on that and wait. So we are working with them still. I have not got any update on their timeline of moving forward, but I'm hoping with this new complaint coming in and being timely, that'll motivate them. But they're interested in the injunction, and it's not really always an easy thing to do to get them to want to do that. So I'm still positive about it.
Thank you. And the issue of curb stoning, there seems to be several cases in here regarding curb stoning. Seems there's a primary residence involved, and there's one that they've been involved in curb stoning before. And my question to staff would be, the new statute that allows seizures of curb stoning, is that something that we could do a better job at as far as mitigating the curb stoning? Seems to be a problem nationwide. Tennessee's kind of leading the board as far as curb stoning to try to stop it. I'm just not aware of any seizures taking place.
I know that, did they do any at Rod Run? I think that's the only time I've heard of them, actually.
No, they've actually, the effectiveness of that new statute depends largely on the adoption by the locals, the local law enforcement authorities, to see the merit of it and actually move forward with it. And, of course, they have a lot of competing crimes in the world of crime. So what we have seen is the locals will tend to question that when there is another crime involved. If it is something that's ancillary to another crime, they'll see that as a symptom, and then they start seeking assistance and clarification on what tools are out there for them. But we have not seen a widespread adoption at this point. I think possibly in the future we might be able to work more closely with the sheriff's associations and with the chiefs of police. I know I did reach out personally to the sheriff's association, the president of the sheriff's association, and communicate with them and sent them some information on it to share. And he was going to share that with the others, and that's been within the last 60 days that I actually reached out to him. And so, just trying to make inroads into that local law enforcement community and get them to understand. But there's always been a reluctancy in that area because prior to the passage of the curb stoning bill, it was, well, who do we have the authority to seize? If we do, then who pays for the storage? Who pays for the wrecker? all of this kind of stuff, which led up to the passage of that bill. And I think by and large, the people, the officers that are working in the field are still not real comfortable with it. And it's going to require not only the local law enforcement, but the district attorneys to get involved. And until this point, or it's involved in another crime, they really don't have a lot of interest. We had one particular county that did get involved, and they did bring a case on the curb stoning, but it was in connection with another very severe criminal activity. But they did have an indictment, and they ultimately continued it because the other charges moved ahead of the curb stoning case.
Yeah, so he had the individual involved had federal and state crime.
Right.
So they're waiting for the federal agency to move forward, but the state agency is still pursuing that. It's still an open case, so they are still prosecuting based on curb stoning.
But I think that the more that, we can make those inroads and they can recognize that that's out there for them, I think it will pick up more organically. I don't expect to see a widespread adoption of it. And then our agents don't have law enforcement authority, so that kind of limits us to the activities that the process that we currently follow.
Tennessee's brilliant for implementing the bill to curb stoning, to stop curb stoning. It's a national problem, and I think the commission should put full support behind the education of that with local law enforcement. They do get 75% of the proceeds on the seizure, and not only that, but it harms the consumer because there's so much fraud in the market. The consumers are getting fleeced readily by these curb stoners.
And especially with all the flood damage cars that are coming into Tennessee at this
Exactly.
time.
So-
Now, we do a lot of referrals over to agencies, to Department of Safety and Homeland Security, that it may be curb stoning, when we see an odometer fraud case, when we see something curb stoning, we will do a referral through legal out to those agencies and then ask that they pick up that supplemental investigation. So we're doing that now. So I think that will help with the adoption and the understanding of the law.
I had one last, the last case, I believe it's a long one in the redirects. It's 109, where the respondent dealership, there was a civil penalty of $10,000. We reduced it to $5,000, and now it looks like we're just going to issue a letter of warning. And my question, well, I'm sure there's a lot going on in this one that we don't see, even though that's a rather long narrative. But my question was, with the respondent admitted to the issues of failure to supervise and hiring of an unlicensed salesperson. Is there something I'm missing here as far as us waiving this any civil penalty?
Mr. Norton, do you mind providing the complaint number on that one for us? I think our numbering might be different than
Okay,
yours.
hold on. Let's see. I'm going to get started on page 48. No, I'm sorry. My pages are off.
Sure, and
Let's see.
even the complaint
Yep,
number,
yep,
I can search for it.
All right, I don't have the complaint number. Okay, the body of the text is on page 57 and goes into 58.
Okay. We might have had a misnumbering, it looks like, perhaps. Let's see.
6. I think it's when it starts on 56.
It would start on page 56.
Uh-huh. It's 20170538441.
I see, yes. This one is with one of our litigating attorneys, Robin Ryan. I actually had this case originally, so I can speak a little bit to it before it was transferred to Robin. So this is a case where the dealership itself has an owner that's a mechanic, and he just really turned the keys over to a manager who is not licensed and who took immense liberties with the freedom given to her, including printing fraudulent tags and helping basically feign a garage keeper's lien in order to get her daughter out of owing this dealer money. When the dealer found out and we investigated, he was horrified, honestly, and he's been very cooperative the whole time. I believe He signed a consent order, didn't he? So the dealer, I believe, he agreed to he's already done an out. The only remaining respondent was the unlicensed individual, and before I even gave this case to Robin, I could not locate her. Her daughter had been living in a property leased by the owner, and then after this all happened, she got up and left. They had an ongoing dispute also about the lease property. So basically, it looks like Robin can't find this person for long of the short. So that's kind of where it's at on that one.
Okay, thank you. That's all I've got.
Yes. Thank you. That's right.
All of those matters are on the legal report.
Okay,
She's
okay.
just here to answer any questions if you
Oh,
had any.
okay. I don't think we got any question unless Chairman Roberts have any. Operator. Finish? Good job.
Thank
job.
you. We always appreciate it. We know it's a doozy every time. We appreciate you.
That's said and done. I guess we'll entertain a motion to accept the report subject to the full commissioner.
Motion to accept.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, so ordered. If there's no more question, we're going to close out the legal report as of 8:50 a.m. All right, good.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor of the motion to adjourn signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, so ordered. Thank you.
Short rules next.
Next would be the audit and finance, and let's see if Commissioner Lawrence and Assistant Commissioner Lawrence and Assistant Commissioner Paul Hartbarker should join us for those meetings. So we'll check and see where they're at. They should arrive shortly. So we might want to take a short break. Quickly, I lost you.
Would we like to start with Commissioner Lawrence?
Thanks, Eddie. I want to apologize in advance if it seems that I'm unprepared. I did just find out that I was going to be presenting to y'all. So I think what I could do is maybe start talking through the financials that you have in front, and then let you take questions that you might have. Before you look at the first document that you should have on top with the year-end net position statement, wanted to caution that we do not actually have our fiscal year closeout back from F&A, which is what's needed from our end to close out the books for the prior year. So what you would see in front of you is not the true numbers, but our best estimate of it. And from past experience, we would anticipate that the numbers that you see in front of you would be very close to accurate, but just wanted to caution that there could be some slight divergence by the time we get to the actual closeout. And just timeline for what we're looking at is that last year we got our closeouts somewhere between September 22nd to September 28th, so we are definitely a little bit behind schedule. We were told to anticipate it 2 weeks ago and then again last week, so if I check again, I'm probably going to be told that I'll have it any time now. So if we wanted to pick up then with that document that you had on top with showing you fiscal year 18, which would start in July 17 and then close out in June 18, we'd see what we had anticipated from our last committee meeting, where according to my notes we had showed, which this must have been in April. Does that sound right, Paula, that April of 18 would have been our last
Sounds correct.
audit committee meeting? Got some notes that I took at the time where we were forecasting out that the fiscal year would close with a loss of $83,671, and ended up in roughly the same area of total expenditures that we had forecasted of 1,853, whereas instead the numbers that you have in front of you show 1,873, so expenditures were slightly higher. The divergence comes that where in April we had anticipated that your revenues would be $1,769,000, Instead, you finished up at $1,700,000. So that's where you come up with the $172,000 number. So maybe if I could stop there before maybe going into a couple of the line items, see if there were any questions. Okay. So seeing them, I'll just kind of drop down through. What I'm going to be comparing against, just for your sake so you know what I'm looking at, would be the closing for reg boards for the previous fiscal year. So these would be the true numbers that we're going to be comparing against. So your licensing revenue over the year that we talked about was $1,692,000. And if you give me one moment, I'm going to compare. So I apologize. In my haste to get down here, it appears that I did not grab the right sheet to compare against the revenues of the previous year. Paula, do you have that?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't have it here.
Is it on the bottom of the?
That is the fiscal year closeout. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Thanks, Jason. Sure. Okay. Okay, so our relevant year to compare it against for the closeout of 18 would be the closeout of 16. And we would see a decline from, in 16, the fiscal year closed out at 1.9 as compared to the 1.7. So as you would note there, about a $200,000 decline. Expenditures, while they do not show up on the sheet that you would have in front of you for the closeout, I do have that in front of me and would be able to compare that to the total expenditures in 16 of 2 million, basically 2 million flat. So you also saw a decline in your expenditures for the last fiscal year. And the reason for that comes in large part due to a legal reduction where your legal costs have gone down, whereas in 16 your legal costs were $312,000. I apologize, looking at the wrong number. Your legal cost backs for 18 were $327,000 as compared to $312,000 for 16. However, I wanted to point out that it was during fiscal year 18 that we changed the way that legal costs were allocated. In the past, your legal costs were allocated through a case and complaint method. We've moved to a more precise method where it's now looking at the hours that the attorneys are using. So you're being billed according to your usage now. So just to take a couple random months to look at, if we look back in, take July of 17, which was before we had made the transition over in January, we were seeing legal cost backs of $28,000, another month of $28,000. Whereas more recently, if you were to switch to the third page that Paula had behind you, where you would see for the P&L for this current year, you'll see legal cost backs, $24,000, $24,000. So seeing some savings there, as well as in some of the other line items where you've seen a reduction across the board. Take, for example, in your field enforcement in fiscal year 16 was $327,000, and your field enforcement for fiscal year 200 round up to $270,000. So largely we've been able to control the costs and actually push down on them in some key areas, which is helpful because we have seen a decline in some revenues. I did actually want to pick up to move ahead to the current, if we could pick up in the August P&L, which I think would have been the third sheet that everyone would have in front of them. So this is moving into what will ultimately be your up year that will compensate for the previous fiscal year that we had anticipated being in the red. I did want to highlight something that was a little bit worrisome to me, is that your licensing revenue is, at this point in the year, under what we had forecast it to be. And to try and explain, if you look down underneath at the historical trends, you can see, let's pick up with July. The actual licensing revenue was $123,000. What we had anticipated was that it was going to be $176,000. So there's a decline there, as well as in the following month. Of course, that's just 2 months, and obviously you're going to need more data points before making any important decisions. But I did want to make you aware of that. It's, of course, something that Paul and I have talked about. Not something to be alarmed about yet, but just something to keep an eye out on the revenues as we move forward.
There in general, a lack of license applications or renewals? Just a count?
So I'll let Paula take that one.
At this point, we have not noticed a significant decline. I think when Carter and I talked last week, I know he was working on some root cause on this, trying to drill down, and we're trying to look at it and see what the explanation would be. I think there's a couple of angles to look at, to look at actual numbers, to look at, look at how the data is being pulled, if it's been pulled across the year, the point where the calculations are made, that can always affect it. And I think at this moment, we really don't know what the root cause of that fluctuation is. We're just trying to drill down into it and make those determinations. Don't you think it's fair to say?
Yeah, so since we had last met, Paula, and you had questioned, whether that was right, I did get with fiscal to confirm that those numbers are correct, that it's pulling right, that we don't have a glitch in the system itself. So to your broader point about the need for a deeper dive, yes, that's where it would be. But again, I just wanted to caution, this is just 2 data points across the year, and that this is still anticipated to be the up year for the Motor Vehicle Commission from a fiscal standpoint.
Refresh my memory. 2 years ago, hasn't the way we apply for our licensings changed? It's computerized now completely, correct?
That's correct.
And is that different than it was 2 years ago, based on what your point was, that something might be pulling incorrectly? Did we do it the
actually
same
went
way?
live about a year ago.
So it
as far
is
as the-
different than 2 years
Over a year.
ago.
2 years ago.
I would strongly.
So
yes.
that would be the way for processing it, but the numbers, it's processed differently. Yes, to your point, but we're still talking about what Paula raised as the same amount of people. So that's where there's something to continue to track in there that we've just got to look into deeper.
And the funds, and Carter, the funds, do those numbers not come from a different accounting system than the
Funds?
The actual numbers, the licensing numbers, and the financials, they come from a different accounting system. They cross over and on the collection.
Sure, right.
So that's different.
You mean from the processing side to
Right.
From
Right.
court? Yes, those are different systems.
Sounds like to me we really need to check into those processes and make sure that we're comparing apples to apples and nothing's getting up between cracks, because we all know when we change systems what that can do.
Right. So everyone changed systems in Reg Board.
Right.
And as it stands right now, this has been the only. When I raised this to Paula and she said we have the same number of people, would you check to make sure that everything's right? Which we did check to make sure everything's right. It would be very odd if the Motor Vehicle Commission was the only one of our programs amongst everything that had an anomaly in the way that the numbers were pulling. What I still think is more likely is that there's been some change in the licensees themselves that is probably the underlying cause that just has not yet manifested itself within the year.
Basically, we still need to do root cause and figure out why we're seeing this, because I don't think either one of us know, and I think the assistant commissioner actually brought it up. He had already identified that number was an issue, and so and had started to look at it and question it before we ever talked. So
Right.
event, I would think that our licensing activity would peak out with the economy as we see it now. We're coming out of the recession, and we had a marked increase in application numbers and then therefore revenue. So licensing revenue now. So we'll have to watch this very carefully.
If I could pick back up, there were two things that I wanted to point out from the net position statement, and we'll just stick with the August one that everyone should have on top. There are a couple of things that aren't still the way that I want them to be on these P&Ls that you're looking at. We're trying to be more transparent in the way that we bill for services. So, for example, with the way that your legal costs have changed, so that they're now reflecting usage rather than the less precise previous method. So to that end, the next time you see one of these, it will be different. We're going to be adding a new line item that's going to show your technology expenses. Right now, your tech expenses are kind of wrapped up in various categories hidden through the line items, and we want to break those out in the future because if you look, for example, at your Edison expenditures in August, you'd see that it's a pretty sizable increase from July, where you went from 45 up to 56. Paula did not add a lot of staff during that time. She has not seen everyone get massive raises. Instead, there are various small fees that add up inside of that related to the technology services that you get that are in that I really think need to be broken out, and we're going to put in its own line item so that in the future you're better able to see how the expenses that you're getting charged for, where they're coming from.
I want to go back to the topic that we had just a moment ago about the fluctuation. There is always the possibility that when we converted, since the last, we're in our second year, which should be our high year, we could have pulled revenues in that first month that would have inflated what your anticipated was for the future years, because if you had late renewals, that could have escalated it, that 179 that you're looking at, because all those, like the auto auctions and manufacturers, they renew in June. And so there's a possibility that you could have seen some of those revenues come in July 1, after the first year. So that could, it could be a possibility of why you saw a higher number at the first part of the year. But that's just basically thinking out loud. You'll always see some crossover from late renewals. And so you went from one part of the cycle to a new cycle starting over.
In general, what is in Edison expenses? Is that payroll?
Generally, yes.
What's the employee count in the department, in the Motor Vehicle Commission now? That's
Currently have 8 active staff members, including myself. We have a vacancy at this point, one vacancy that we're working on filling.
Which would be the same number as 1 year ago. With the vacancy, if that were to be filled, that'd be the same staffing as a year prior.
We may have had another slot that moved out, but it wasn't actively staffed.
Right. So the same number of people on the payroll, with the exception of the one vacancy right now from a fairly recent departure.
questions from the commission? We get a final budget for fiscal year 27.
The closeout, yes.
Closeout, yeah.
Paula will get that closeout just as soon as we get it from F&A. Make sure that Paula gets that right away. And Paula, I don't know how you distribute, but of course.
Normally
welcome to send
distribute,
right
and
away.
then the committee comes together. Usually
Sure.
the committee will meet in like April and like October. That's kind of the standard cycle that they.
Got it. Okay.
But if there's any reason that we need to meet before then, that's strictly up to the
That's
commission.
that's my question. It might poll the other members of this committee, we won't have that final number.
April, and I don't like that.
Well, can we get it?
I think,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we
Before the
should be
next-
able to distribute that. I
Oh,
would think.
absolutely. I would.
Well, can we get it before the next meeting in January?
Yes, certainly. So, and again, with the caveat that I've already been told this twice, I'm told to expect it this week. At the very latest, it's got to be coming soon. And then Paula would be able to send it to the committee for your individual consumption. I don't know, do you do telephonic meetings with committees?
Sometimes we do, and we
Okay.
could do that if that's the will of this body to do that.
I think so.
Agree.
Yeah, we need to have some closure, lack of a better word, or something more definitive to report to the full commission. as a
I would
committee.
also like to see the numbers from 18 to 19 at that time, too.
Sure.
I don't know that we need to vote on this, but could we set up a teleconference call for,
As soon as those numbers are available, would that be, or November, whichever comes first?
Right.
How's that?
And alternately, if there were issues with scheduling, I think Paula and I could also make individual phone calls. The committee is small enough that that'd be no issue. If you wanted to have individual phone calls, just to make it easier on your schedules, that I'd be happy to do that. I don't want to speak for Paula.
for the purposes of organization, I wanted to inform Commissioner Melton, I have appointed you chairman of the committee. So if you'll coordinate,
Glad to.
further comments from, so we'll look for a teleconference call and
And I have one more comment. At the time that this conference phone call will take place, will you have the detail of that Edison expenditure listed where you're going to break out technical services?
It should be broken out by then. We're
I
working
would
on
like
it right
to
now.
have that too, please.
Yeah, so
if
if
that's possible.
that's something outside of my control to personally be able to do, but it's something that I've told fiscal that I would like to have broken out separately.
Okay.
But yeah, it should be ready by that point. If it's not, then some processes would have failed along the way. But yeah, I definitely want to make as much information available for you as possible so that you can make management decisions for your program.
comments or questions. Anybody in the audience have a question? Okay. Hearing none, Chair will yes, ma'am.
We do need to back up because I guess we're trying to accommodate a little bit disheveled here, but the agenda and the minutes from the previous meeting, we need to do that, take that action. We moved straight into
Were
business.
both those circulated in advance?
They were.
Okay.
I'll second that
Commissioner
emotion.
Barker, seconded by Commissioner Melton to approve. Are we approving the minutes from the previous meeting? Okay. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those in opposition, say no. Then we need a motion to approve the agenda. Doing this in arrears a little bit, but
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
motion Commissioner Melton, seconded by Commissioner Barker. Those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those in opposition, say no. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion Commissioner Barker, seconded by Commissioner Melton.
Yes, I will second that.
For the motion, say aye. Those opposed, say no. We are adjourned. Thank you.
And Eddie Roberts at large. So I'll go ahead and turn everything over to Paula Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think our first action we need to, on the committee, is we will need to do the roll call, obviously, and you've already announced those individuals. And so give me a second here. I gave you my paper, so. Michelle, no.
What, I don't know.
Give us a second. Chairman Vaughn.
Here.
Commissioner White. Here. Commissioner Lee. Here. Commissioner Fox.
Here.
Commissioner Murray. Here. Commissioner Roberts.
Here.
Madam Chairman, we have a quorum. The next item that we have on the agenda, it would be to approve the agenda and to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
All vote.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Where are the minutes from the meeting?
iPad.
Right there.
I don't have an iPad, so.
Oh.
Thank you. I have a motion to accept the minutes from the previous meeting of October 15th. I mean, actually, what was the date of it? It was June 13th.
Seconded.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I think at this time we should turn the meeting over to legal to go over the red line of the rule discussions from the previous meeting, and then you will probably want to talk to each item that is proposed change and make a determination on whether you would like to move forward with that particular proposal or have further discussion.
Sounds great. Thanks, Ms. Page.
Members of the commission, thank you. I'm stepping in for Liz today. She got married Saturday, and so she is off celebrating. But I have worked closely with her. She's a fantastic notes taker, so I feel prepared to have these discussions with you today. I wanted to, before we jump into the red lines, just a quick note. The online salvage disclosure rule has officially become effective, so dealers will be able to start doing rebuild and salvage disclosures online as they process online transactions, and as we know, the industry moves in that direction. So I think that's a positive change, and it should be, the notify has been sent out to our licensees at this point. So congratulations on that. To start with, I thought maybe we could, I know that Liz told me we're in a position now where these are more in a discussion phase to start to refine, talk about what we would like to do with the rules. So I figured we could take them one at a time. I'll take really good notes and make sure that we can get everything hammered down to reflect this commission's will. The first section on the red lines is under the application sections, .08 of our rules. This body has discussed the adding to gain more contact information from our applicants on the front end. So this would be an amendment to our application process as we see it now. Liz has provided language here which would require applicants provide a current address, phone number, and email address. So I don't know if there was any comments or further discussions or ideas for that section. It's pretty simple this time around.
Any discussion from the members? I mean, my personal opinion is it only makes sense, especially to add the email address, since we've gone to everything online, and that helps us contact somebody a lot quicker.
Right.
A case where an operator might have, or applicant might have fax and not have email.
And look at possibly adding fax number as well. A lot of the dealers do still use fax. Yeah.
Fax, that made me think of that.
So I think I'll let Liz know that's a good option. Okay. Also, under that same rule, we haven't drafted formal language for this. It was something that the bodies have talked about, but it wasn't really finalized. And so I think Liz is seeking guidance on whether this is something we want to pursue and in what we want that to look like, which would be to add rules that require a dealer be present for salesperson applications. This has come up in prior meetings. I know that there's been opinions on both sides. So some stating that they thought it might be burdensome on the dealer to have to appear, and that they should be able to do it in writing and things like that. So I didn't know if you would all like to discuss it and see if that's something you would like to move forward on, or what you feel about it, really.
You're speaking of the appeals, not the application.
It would be appeals, salesperson appeals, which Liz has kind of temporarily put under the application section, since that's where the appeal comes up. They apply, it triggers, and so we would put them there likely.
I could see where that would be beneficial, yet at the same time, if it's a small dealer, some sort of independent dealer, and the day-to-day operations, I might make it difficult for the travel, coming from different parts of the state.
Are you speaking of the dealer himself, or are you speaking of a dealer representative? I think a lot of dealers wouldn't show up that not even are active at the dealership.
It'd have to be something along the lines of dealer and/or dealer representative. Or, you could even do a notarized letter from the dealer or operator, because, some people have their general managers running the stores. Mm-hmm.
And I know that one of the things Liz has mentioned of something, at least as a consideration, is that we've had an issue come up where people appear for the appeals, but they're actually not employed at that dealership any longer. Some of that being due to the length of time it takes to get that appeal approved. So I know that I think the notarized or something like that, just from legal standpoint, would help as far as us being able to answer that question for you all on whether they're still employed.
I think we talked about doing that too. Was it not either on company letterhead or something where it was, because I could take a piece of paper and write it out and have somebody notarize it for me. It needs to have something that that it came from that particular organization.
If it's something that's notarized, like within you've got within like a 7-day window, for example, that's just an idea of stating that the person is still currently employed, and yes, the dealership would like to employ this person. Because you think about even letterhead. I could Google probably some logos and come up with a letterhead that says, I'm Chairman Roberts. Just a thought. Just from the standpoint of, at least it takes it one step further, that if you're willing to notarize a form saying I am who I say I am, and that type thing. Just a thought. Because you don't want to make it overly burdensome on the dealer, but you also don't want to stop the salesperson from applying for the job.
Have instead of that they could just pull off a website.
Application, does it have it where they certify that?
Well, the original application has an attestation on it that they're employed, but what the concern is that from sometimes when individuals make application, they may not have disclosed their previous history. And then when it does come back, the dealer may or may not wish to continue that, to extend that opportunity. So the appeal will come in, and the individual could, obviously appeal before the commission and not be attached to a dealer, which is where all of the consumer protection tools are. But to answer your question, I think a form could be developed if that was the will of this commission, and that was something that was adopted into rules, so that it wouldn't be burdensome on a dealer or maybe a small operator, that an attestation could be drafted that could be pulled off of the internet with the consideration, like you said, within 7-day window, which would be in line with a lot of other things that we do. You obviously wouldn't take a financial statement from 5 years ago. You want it to be something that's timely in that proximity. So I think that could be an option versus the dealer being present, and it would mitigate the concerns or the risk of that individual not having an affiliation with a business that had all of the consumer protection tools in place.
I do think it would be important to make sure it's notarized, to say that, this is the right person, at least one step further, just to make it clear.
I would expect that if you did an attestation, it would still have the information. It would have the dealer's signature and the applicant's signature, the salesperson's applicant's signature both. So they would be notarizing both in that format, which is very similar to the original application.
I missed this, but for my own edification, when there's an appeal, is there a form, a separate form for that person? Could we just add it to that page? Add the sponsoring dealer to that application page?
Actually, I think we already have something similar to that. It's just a matter of since the commission only meets every 3 months, that becomes problematic because they may apply. Let's say that you're meeting in October. Let's say they apply in November. You don't meet again until January. So I think that's where the 7 days prior to is beneficial, because they could go ahead and apply for an immediate appeal, and then by the time that the appeal rolls around to come before this body, some things could have changed. So I think having it timely would be. But yes, it is on there, I think, now, the appeal form itself.
When we review the applicants that are here today during the full commission meeting, you'll see on that form they fill out at the end, they have a location for both the salesperson and the dealer representative to sign. But that is, like Paula said, that is done at the point of application, original application, typically, unless they didn't know to do the form at the time of denial, yeah.
And I think the commission has worked in this direction in the past, because the form for the appeal form was actually passed by this body, within the last year. So you've already moved in that direction. But we're continuing to look at opportunities to ease the burden on the applicants themselves, and to mitigate that concern that and the risk that we've seen with the individual not being affiliated with a business that has those consumer protection tools in place. But I think a modification to that form would be, or another type of document, that's something that would be an easy fix.
It sounds like an additional form just to re-verify with a 7-day window.
If they opted that the dealer was
appear.
not going to be present with them. A lot of times the dealers do, as you've seen. The dealers do choose.
Right.
They have a strong confidence in the individual that they're supporting and sponsoring and wanting to get back into the community. And so you do see a lot of times that they feel strongly and they come with them. But in the event that they couldn't, for whatever foreseen reason, we could offer another opportunity where that could be addressed.
I do feel like it's vital for the form to say the dealer and or operator needs to sign the form, because it could be a general manager, just like y'all brought up, that the dealer may not be involved in the day-to-day operations.
So is that something you would like legal to start trying to create the bones of for further discussion? If so, I didn't know if you wanted to make a recommendation as a body, or however you would like to go forward on that. I know that Liz and I can work on getting you a draft language together.
The discussion, is everybody okay with doing a form that gives that we've discussed? Then our recommendation is to create a form for the appeal process, to clarify, with a 7-day window, with a signature from the dealer and or operator.
Back to this body the next time it meets.
Yes.
Would you all be willing to do that in the form of a motion, just for the record?
Oh, sure.
That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Don't have a rule currently that says that someone has to be, so we don't have to really deal with that, I don't think, that part. Since it's not a rule.
Just as my initial, obviously Liz will be drafting this, but my initial thought on it would be that it would say something similar. Under the appeal section, it might say something akin to when you appear before the commission, applicant must have with them in person a dealer or dealer representative, period, in lieu of a live, of having a dealer be present, you can execute the following form. So it would be an alternative. So you would have the presumption would be we want you to bring somebody, but if you don't, next section, this is what you're going to do. So that's a rough idea, just because that's what would be the format I've seen it in other contexts. So Liz could bring something totally different, but that's kind of how I kind of think it might go. So I agree.
Form, whether the dealer appears with an applicant or that.
Okay, so you want the form, even if they appear, you want them to execute the form as well?
All of them, that they have at least that. Is there some general question? Are there some general questions by appellants on what they should do? I mean,
that happens quite often. They'll contact us about what they're supposed to do, what does that look like, and we typically always tell them, feel free to bring a reference. It's your opportunity to be open and honest with the commission. And now they fill out that paperwork ahead of time too, so they've already seen. We'll let them know these are generally the issues on the form you're filling out now. When a denial comes in, they answer much more detailed questions for us now, and you'll see that on your iPad. We'll let them know that that's the general outline of what
And that form is basically, it's kind of a checklist for them to let them know, do you have this, do you have this, and then it actually is, it's to help the commission, but it's to help them as well, so they can be prepared when they get here.
the representation with the appellant runs the gamut. I've seen attorneys, I've seen their preachers, I've seen brothers-in-law. It all kind of runs the gamut in there. So I don't think we want to be in a position where we someone with you when when a sponsoring dealer might say, "Hey, I want my attorney to show up."
Well, my only concern, I think that if the applicant wants to bring whoever, that's great, but I think we just need to make sure for this purpose that the dealer knows that this person is showing up and they still want to hire them. So I think if we do that, then this should cover us.
That leaves it up to the person seeking the appeal to determine who they bring with them.
Would it make more sense then if, obviously, instead of having any language about bringing someone with you, just to say, in addition to denial, you will execute the following form with your dealer within 7 days and lay that out. So, okay, that makes sense.
Do I have a motion on the floor to turn it back over to legal to come up with a form for us and then represent it to us? Great. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no.
The next section, it talks about inspection of business records. This was a proposal that was sent to us by the professional associations, requesting that on Section 2, all records shall be kept on site or at a location where the records can be accessed. Right now, our rule reads in a reasonable amount of time. They have proposed that we instead make that a 30-day window. And Liz also wrote in here an exception to the 30-day calendar requirement may be made for extenuating circumstance upon written request by the licensee and subsequent approval by the commission. So I wanted to present this to discuss with you. I did want to add, again, this is the commission's will. You all, obviously, anything that you would like to do. From a disciplinary counsel standpoint, I will tell you that I'm not 100% comfortable with this. From my perspective, is for consumer protection. To me, this favors a dealer more than it does a consumer, as far as my ability as a prosecutor to look for documents and to demand documents quickly and prevent someone from either backdating documents, formulating documents, or forging documents. I know that we've talked about a little bit in the committee that one of the things we run into a lot is corporate dealers or large dealers having to okay production of records through legal counsel. there's discussion with this commission on whether we hold people accountable for certain violations, and I have always deemed a dealer being confused between me asking and their lawyer asking as a reasonable confusion of what they need to do. And normally I take that up with their legal counsel, and almost every time, as soon as I get the attorney on the phone or by email, and I send them our rule about production of records, those records are in my office in 4 days minimum. But I do know that happens. That would be that's the major point where I see records lately produced, is usually because there's a corporate disagreement amongst their general counsel. Otherwise, it's buy here, pay here's who straight up just don't have the documents. And I think that's where, as disciplinary counsel, I have a problem, which is when I get a corporate attorney who stepped in and there's reasonable confusion and it's very clear the records exist. It's just that they are not going to give them to me until I tell them why, because they're lawyers and they're scared. That's reasonable. I'm not going to hold the dealer accountable. My buy here, pay here's, it's a whole different story, because sometimes I'll ask them for records and 2 weeks will go by and I'll get records and everyone's signature looks awful similar, and there was no records on site before and they have a history, and I just worry about the time period. I just want to add that from disciplinary counsel's perspective, but again, defining reasonable time is totally in the power of this body. You can define that to be however you believe what is reasonable and what is good for the industry. And this was proposed by the associations as something they believe to be reasonable. And so I know that they have considerations there and reasons that they did that. But I did want to throw that out. I've talked about it to our chief counsels, and we're pretty uniform in our agreement that this seems like a wide time period, and also that it's inherently depriving this board of authority, because reasonable time is something you could define on a fact-by-fact basis, and now we're being bound by a time period, with your ability to waive it to be longer, or to be made some sort of exception if it's in written request, which to me it would only be an extension, not a shortening, right? So I just want to throw that out there. Again, I'll let you discuss, but those are my thoughts on it. I wasn't able to meet with Bob Weaver. I know we had talked about meeting. That did not happen. So I did not get to give my opinion on that to him off of the record, but that is my opinion on the rule.
It's good to note on this as well that this is a discussion or a topic that comes up rather frequently when we have a pretty sensitive situation or something that's very time sensitive, and over the discussion, the origination of this discussion originated with legal, and so I think it's good that we're having this conversation. I agree with Ms. Page that it can be rather problematic when you have a very time sensitive situation where you've got a dealer who maybe has become insolvent, and time is of essence when you're trying to protect the consuming public. So I think it's good that we've had this discussion. But I think her point and legal's concern now is definitely merited.
Absolutely. I totally agree. While I was at first for the 30 days, it makes perfect sense that a lot can either be created or destroyed within 30 days. And when you've got a consumer out there, that's another payment that's due for them. And that could put somebody in a world of hurt, that's for sure. Any discussion from the committee?
You're a lot more involved than we are in this and see what's going on, so I would take our council's advice. And you're saying leave it the same is what you're saying, correct?
You are welcome to define it however you like. I think as far as commission power, leaving it the same gives you the broadest discretion, but I understand where the associations are coming from, which is the dealers looking for some level of expectation. So I wouldn't necessarily, I think leaving it the same that would be, from my perspective, as far as a prosecutor seeking my ability to do what I want to do on a case-by-case basis, that's my preference. But I understand the countervailing point. So I want to be clear that I get that there is where that desire would be coming from.
Right. No, I mean, and then that, just like you said, that's when we can say it's reasonable, especially for a big corporation that needs to go through their attorneys, that they need to do that. So that's reasonable. But I think 30 days could be detrimental to some of the consumers. So I think that my opinion is to leave it the same and not to make the change of the 30 days.
Yeah, I tend to agree there. 30 days is too long of leeway to get a simple document like a copy of a note or something like that. There are other things that could
especially if your records are on site. I mean, 30 minutes is reasonable as well. I mean, so it could be something along those lines. Any further discussion? Do I have a...
Make a motion to leave it the same.
Okay. Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no.
I appreciate that. Section 21, this is to deal with facilities, a small amendment that we have here. Right now, the rule requires that if you have two separate businesses that are not allowed to be, that are not incidental to your dealership where you're allowed to have them in the same space, we have a physical barrier requirement as far as what you have to do to have those businesses in that same proximity. Currently, the doors, it reads that the doors have to be permanently sealed, walled off. So this amendment requests that instead of that, that the adjoining businesses just be secured and locked from the interior in a nature that is satisfactory to this commission, to make that physical barrier without requiring people to remove the entryways that might help them facilitate the two different businesses they run and their off hours, but not allow consumers to believe that they can go through them or that they're one cohesive business. So I have no opinion on this one. Sorry, this is not what you all discuss away.
If you're going to permanently seal it, you don't need a door.
Pull your mics close when you're speaking, please, for the record.
Well, I understand it. It's definitely, it's a big change because it does, to me, I understand where we're going with this, but at the same time, it is a big change for having two businesses connected. You know, if the doors are front and center in the main part of the business, then what's the purpose of the doors? I don't know. I'm a little, I'm 50-50, I guess, is the best way to put it. Is there any discussion from the other committee members?
And the deal on this thing is you had two businesses that shared a kitchen when that was the deal.
I think this was the
yeah.
particular scenario.
Yeah, and you had an interior, I mean, for a small operation, I think it clarifies a little bit in that sense. I mean,
And this rule will apply the same to every business.
Because that's my concern is, you know, say you've got two businesses together and it's the public, the general public may not go into that particular kitchen, but if the door is up in the front and you leave it open, those businesses are connected. It's just a door in between.
Dealerships built, I think of one in particular of a Subaru Volkswagen that's built, and they had to be separated, but they've got a door between them where the consumer can go from one side to the other, you know, without them having to go back outside and
Well, I mean,
re-enter.
if it's two, you know, dealerships that are connected, you know, I've got my
What
businesses
if
are
this
that
is a
way.
boat in a
Well, this would be like maybe say it's a convenience store or a law office connected to a car dealership. So that would be the concern.
You have another rule to consider because there is another rule that requires that businesses, if there is another business, that it be under common ownership, that it be the same owner that own both businesses. So just in consideration of your discussion, you might want to consider that.
I almost feel like that we're almost there, but not quite. Like it needs a little bit more fine tuning, in my personal opinion. Move your mic down.
Well, I mean, you have another rule. We would need to consider that, and I'm going to ask Ms. Page, since she's the legal eagle, to chime in on this, but we do have another rule that was passed in legislation, where it's actually a statute, I guess.
I think so.
Yeah, that passed a few years ago that would allow, we call it the 6633 rule, and that 6633 allows that a principal of a existing business that operates an additional business may have one additional business if the basically the footprint and the net earnings, I'm not quoting it exactly right, but that's basically it, are not more than 33%. So basically ensuring that the primary business of that operation continues to be auto sales, but it requires that the owner own both businesses. So it's not like when you are addressing or visiting that business operation that you're dealing with multiple people and, oh, this belongs to this person, this belongs to that person, or we have one vehicle and 45 something else. I mean, there's a balance in it, and that's been a little challenging to implement, but I understand the logic behind it and why that, especially in some of the rural areas, could be beneficial and for small operators. But we also have to consider that rule and what the impact would be on the industry and the protection of the consumer and of the confidentiality of the records that are kept on site. So those are just factors to consider.
This access would be for the owners of the business, not, I don't think the intent is for the general public to go from place to place.
If that's what you would like it to, if you'd like to clarify that, that might be a way to go to Commissioner Vaughn's point of fine-tuning this a little more, to say any doors conjoining the business shall be secured and locked from the interior in a nature that prohibits the general public from utilization of the door, and it is in a manner satisfactory to the commission. That way you know it's only for people who are tenants of the building or affiliates of the business, and if they were found to be allowing consumers to be using those passageways, that would be disallowed if you believe that would cause a confusion to consumers or any harm. So it is an option, Chairman Roberts.
Having an example of a problem that this has caused, and just
I will refer. I'm going to kind of just give you, in the years of experience that I had working in the field, as an example, I have seen, where there would be additional businesses. I have seen records go through walls, go through doors when you come in if there was a particularly sensitive situation. I had one that had a rotating bookcase that used to be a door, and actually saw people kind of going through there, a couple of times. But I think that from a regulatory side, that's the things that I've seen actually being out in the field. But I think from a legitimate business, you may have a property owner that has the opportunity to lease more space to more than one business, and then they may have a concern about having to divide those areas or having access to those areas, or fire codes may say, oh, you've got to have a passageway if you can break this up into 2 or more units. So that all of that comes into play, and I think a lot of it comes back to where we need to consider if the objective is to if the public interest is best served by ensuring that the primary business operation at that location is auto sales, and if that goal and objective, how that affects the primary business owner at that location. I mean, I think that's what we have to look at. But yes, there are random examples of a million different scenarios, good and bad, across the state. I think the 6633 rule came into place about a small business in a rural area that was also selling maybe storage sheds or something on their lot. And in a rural area, when sales are down, you're trying to survive as a business owner. So I think that's where that came in, where it was operated by the same principal dealer so that they would have an opportunity to earn additional monies. The ones that we're seeing, you open the door for a real estate development type situation where they basically have multiple units and in one area. I mean, that's something we have to consider. I know in some of the other organizations and things that I'm involved in and with other states, I have seen this become very problematic, where you would have multiple dealers located in a very small space, very, very small spaces with minimal. What's the doorway? What's the height of the doorway? I mean, is there a solid wall? I mean, it brings up all of those questions, and when you're actually in the field having to work it, it does become quite complex. You know, what is the doorway? Every building that you think about is not laid out exactly the same. So it could be somewhat problematic. But then again, there's a business side to it to consider.
I'd like to see us refer this back to legal to fine-tune the wording and kind of maybe think about kind of like what our thoughts on all of this as well, and then bring it back to the Rules Committee to represent. I mean, I know we need to do something. It's just we're not quite there yet, in my personal opinion. Is there any discussion from the other members of the committee or thoughts on that?
Good idea to do that, because I think we're going to open up a can of worms here when we start to see how many dealers this is going to affect.
Right. We want to be pro-business, but at the same time, we
Yeah.
want to make sure that we're protecting the consumers as well, and we're almost there. Do I have a motion to refer back to the legal?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no.
The red lines we have today. Thank you.
Director Shaw, do we have any further discussion?
We have no further business.
Great. Do I have a motion to conclude our meeting for the Rules Committee? Commissioner Murray? Great. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys done these concerns with the commission?
Let's push.
We don't push it, they just call.
Not to be too dramatic. Did that sound very dramatic? Oh my God. Electric Lincoln. Anybody got one? I swear to you, I might put one in my car for that next. Anytime we have those, the meetings in the wintertime are just freezing. It's good except for that. That's how we've ever had a problem, but I'm glad you called it. Maybe we can be done with them. Oh, wait, what time is it? I don't know.
Sin City.
Victor's on his way back from the. I love Victor. We have turned into great friends. When he comes to town, he comes to stay with us.
Oh, okay.
Oh, next to Acura.
Yeah. What did they do?
Well, you're not listed under president.
Yes. Sorry about that. No, that's fine.
Ready to begin? All right. It's 10:30 a.m., October 15, 2018. I call the meeting of the quarterly meeting of the Tennessee Motor Vehicle Commission to order. Ms. Shaw, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Levy? Here. Commissioner West? Here. Commissioner White? Here. Commissioner Murray?
Here.
Commissioner Melton?
Here.
Commissioner Shabanian?
Here.
Commissioner Lee?
Here.
Commissioner Barker?
Here.
Commissioner Fox?
Here.
Commissioner Galvin? Commissioner Norton?
Here.
Commissioner Vaughn? Here. Commissioner Jackson?
Here.
Commissioner Kramer?
Here.
Commissioner Evans? Commissioner Tomaso?
Here.
Chairman Roberts?
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have quorum.
Okay. like to welcome a new commissioner, Charles West from Maryville, Tennessee. I have some of Charles's resume committed to heart since I've known his family for so long. I think he would be a third-generation dealer. Fourth-generation dealer. Your father served on the Motor Vehicle Commission. So, long time ago.
It's wackier every generation, as we know.
So we welcome Charles to the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
Okay. Meeting notice was posted. Director Shaw.
The meeting, I'm sorry. The meeting's date, time, and location have been noticed on the Tennessee Motor Vehicle Commission website, included as part of this year's meeting calendar since July 24, 2017. Additionally, the agenda for this month's meeting has been posted on the Tennessee Motor Vehicle Commission's website since October 9, 2018. This meeting has also been noticed on the tn.gov website.
If you'd look at the agenda for today and like to get that approved.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the agenda for today.
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Vaughn, seconded by Commissioner Melton, to approve today's agenda. Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, Chair calls for a voice vote. Those in favor of the motion to approve the agenda for today say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. If you'll also consider the minutes from the July 16th, 2018 quarterly meeting.
Chairman, we do have one correction on the minutes. Commissioner Chabanian is marked as non-attendance in one area in the minutes that we won't make a change to.
I was also here for the roll call on the appeals vote and voted yes. That's not noted.
Chairman Roberts, myself also. I was in attendance, but don't.
From the July 16. Okay. We get all those noted? Yes. Those changes to the minutes from the July 16, 2018 quarterly meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay. Commissioner Vaughn moves and Commissioner Fox seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, by voice vote, those who approve of the minutes with the changes read into the record say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Ms. Shaw, would you note the attendance of Commissioner Evans? Okay, thank you. Other housekeeping matters we need to do before we move on to the appeals? Okay. All right. At this time, we'll move on to the salesperson or dealer appeals. Do we need to read the? Do we need to leave the law in, or it's noted?
It's noted.
Okay. I need some yellow. I'm used to those yellow arrows that point at what I'm supposed to do. Okay, Brian Dustin Graham, Phoenix Wholesale, Knoxville, Tennessee. Mr. Graham. Good morning, sir.
Members of the commission, Liz wanted me to remind everyone that we are being live streamed, so to make sure you're utilizing your mic, and Mr. Graham as well, when you speak, if you'll make sure that red light turns on for us. I have a recommendation today for Mr. Graham's, based upon the analysis provided above. As you can see, item 3 on the iPad. You'll have the new Fresh Start Act memo is in there. There's quite a bit of detail, but gaining from what Liz told me, and please let me know if there's any other way you'd like me to do it, I intend to just read the recommendation, and as the commission discuss, if we need to go and look at any of the factors in particular, we can do that.
Okay.
But based upon the analysis provided above, it's my opinion that the commission does have the discretion to deny such applicant based upon his conviction of moral turpitude under the analysis required by the Fresh Start Act. Additionally, the Motor Vehicle Commission has a rebuttable presumption that the applicant's conviction directly relates to the fitness of the applicant to hold a license, as the applicant's conviction was a Class C felony. legal reminds you that this is not a recommendation from us to do an action one way or the other, but just to inform you of the powers you have today that you may deny or approve today under the Fresh Start Act and under your 5-year conviction bar. And just to set the stage, this Class C felony is an aggravated burglary committed in with the last release date being 2015, meaning the 5-year period out would be 2020, December of 2020.
Any comments on the application, Ms. Page? Any comments on the particular application?
No
further.
No further. Just that this relates to moral turpitude, and we're within 5 years, so you have full discretion to do with this as you will.
And would you like to address the commission?
Yes, I actually was before you guys back in February when I opened Phoenix Wholesale. You granted me my dealer's license. I'm really good in the car business as far as selling cars, financing cars. My accounting wasn't up to par. My overhead got real high and my repairs got high, so I wasn't able to keep that business open. So I'm actually applying for a salesman's license to work with Hilltop Car Sales on Clinton Highway, which is Mr. Green here, is who I'm working for or looking to go to work for. And it was declined by the department. So
move you a little closer to the mic.
Yes, sir. Just here to request that hopefully get an exception on the rule.
Commission members, are there questions for Mr. Graham?
Give us Commissioner Vaughn, could you give us a little bit more detail on what happened? I remember you from before, but
yes,
I want to make
ma'am.
sure it's on the record.
Well, when I opened my business, you guys required $10,000, and that's what I had in the bank, and I had a couple floor plan lines. And just being a small guy, just trying to make it work, probably hired too many people to begin with, and my accounting just wasn't there. I mean, I just didn't have the capital to overcome the repairs that I had and the employees that I was paying, and it just didn't work out for me.
So money ran short.
Yes.
And made a few mistakes. Is that what you're?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't remember the details.
What was the description of the burglary, sir?
Aggravated burglary.
Yeah.
I was in my younger age was addicted to drugs, and in 2011 I broke into some homes to supply my drug habit.
Graham, you've been selling cars for quite a few years, hadn't you? When you sell them for?
Yes, sir. I started at Reader Chevrolet in 2002. That's all I've ever done, really. As an adult.
Vaughn, one more question. You haven't been in any trouble since this conviction, correct?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I also provided in the file a copy from the state of probation and parole where I had no marks against my record. I did all my community service. I've done everything that I know I can do to, pay for my crimes.
Green that came with you?
Yes, Mr. Green.
Would he like to address the commission? Good morning, sir.
Thank you very much. I've known Dustin for quite a while now, and I want to tell you this. There are very few people that I know in the car business that are talented as he is. I've been in the automobile business myself for 35 years, having worked for Ted Russell for 25 years. Some of y'all here may know him. And I've had my own business for 10 years. And so I've hired and trained a lot of salesmen, a lot of managers, and I've never met anyone that has the talent of this young man. And I'm here today to support him and to ask you to grant him a sales license. One of the areas that Dustin is weak in is accounting. And having worked for Ted Russell for 25 years, that's one of the areas of my strength, because Mr. Russell was very adamant about learning that aspect of the business. And I think not only can Dustin help me and to help our business sell a lot of cars, but I can help him and help him grow into the kind of individual that he needs to be.
Questions for Mr. Green?
members of the commission, I did want to, this just came up, I apologize. I did want to note for you, just for consideration, the dealership that Mr. Graham was previously related to has 4 complaints on our legal report, which we are asking to close due to the business being closed from consumers not receiving title to vehicles. Sounds like likely financial, but I just want to make you aware in case you would like to ask Mr. Graham about that.
Commissioner Vaughn, I'd actually like to ask Mr. Is it Green? Is that correct? My question for you is, would he be responsible for any sort of title work, paperwork?
Believe it or not, I do my own title work, and I have two small lots, and I do it all myself. So Dustin wouldn't be doing any of that.
Does he have any financial interest in your dealership, or is he just merely a employee?
No, just purely an employee.
Okay.
It's a sole proprietorship. I own myself, both of them.
Questions?
Actually, I have a few more questions. This is more for the first Ms. Page. Those complaints that are being closed, have the consumers been taken care of, or have they had any sort of?
They've been provided with the surety bond information. Whether they've received title in the meantime, we don't know, but they've been provided with surety.
I have a question for Mr. Graham. Commissioner Norton, are you involved in this process of these consumers, helping them be remedied?
Yes, sir. The titles are right now still in, well, 2 of them have been returned to O&L, and Next Gear and AFC are, we're working with the bonding company to make sure that the consumers get their title. So, I mean, yes, I'm involved in the process. It's just takes a little time from them, so.
Other questions? Moves, grant the license, seconded by Commissioner Fox. Is there discussion of the motion? Chair hears no discussion, so we'll move to a roll call vote. Yes will be to grant, and no will be to deny, which would uphold the denial from the staff. Ms. Shaw.
Commissioner Levy?
Yes.
Commissioner West?
Yes.
Commissioner White? Yes. Commissioner Murray?
Yes.
Commissioner Melton?
Yes.
Commissioner Tribanian?
Yes.
Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Commissioner Barker?
Yes.
Commissioner Fox?
Yes.
Commissioner Norton?
Yes.
Commissioner Vaughn?
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kramer?
Yes.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Commissioner Tomaso?
Yes.
Chairman Roberts?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Members of the commission, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Congratulations. That's an important thing. Yeah. Congratulations. Sorry about that, Mr. Graham.
I was about to do a suspended congratulations. Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Is it a comment on this case?
It is.
Okay.
Under the Fresh Start Act, it would behoove the commission to have maybe a brief discussion on the reasons that they chose to grant this license versus deny this license. Doesn't have to be anything in detail, but just the things that made you feel comfortable granting it would be a good conversation to have on the record.
I would be happy to start that. The reason why I personally felt comfortable, because his employer is going to be supervising him. I think it is important that he has a job so that he is able to make the customers that are currently without their titles, make them whole so they have a place to go if he runs out of money with the surety bond. And he's been up front with us, told us what happened. He marked, yes, he had a felony conviction. He did all the things he was supposed to do, and this will give him the ability to make them whole if necessary.
What Commissioner Vaughn said.
Mike's closer. Thank
And
you.
this group offered him a license back, in February for a full operation, so just getting a sales license only, I think, would be not so far stretched.
Congratulations, Mr. Green.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. You have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Mr. Green, thank you, sir. Thank you. Nicholas Tice. Couple of comments from legal staff, and then we'll hear.
Mr. Tice here is today with under reporting Class D felonies and Class C felony. Those are burglary other than a habitation, theft of property, and false report of a bomb threat. This occurred the last release date, probation of parole, is going to be August of 2020 or later. So that puts our 5-year statute out to August 2025 or later as far as end of sentencing and punishment. So based on the analysis provided, it is legal's opinion that the Commission does have the discretion to deny this application based on the conviction of moral turpitude under the analysis required by the Fresh Start Act, as well as the 5-year statute.
Could we itemize those felony charges? Again, I don't see them written.
Sure.
Here. The last one was a bomb threat.
Yes, so there's
burglary.
2 Class D felonies, burglary and theft of property, and then a Class C felony, I believe, false report of a bomb threat. I may have misappropriated those. I can take a look down in here in the statute. But there are 3 total.
Bryce, would you like to address the Commission?
Yes, sir. Do I just go into detail?
We'll, in anticipation of some questions, a description of how you got to where you are, and if you're in.
Yes, sir. Well,
what the future will look like.
Right now, I work at Newton Nissan in Gallatin. This is my manager, Tim Clark, and another salesman, Paul Dillard. He actually went through this, I think, 11 years ago. So I was just younger and in college, and I got introduced to Xanax, and in 2012, I was really addicted to them and started making really dumb choices. I don't really remember that time of my life very much. It's kind of like a blur. But I guess I broke into a gas station, stole lottery tickets and stuff. The bomb threats, I don't remember. I don't know why I did them. I have, no. So after all that happened, I went to jail in Sumner County for a little while, got out, and then I was on probation and violated my probation. Well, I never went to probation. And when I went back, I just got out in 2017 in January, and I've been on community corrections. I actually have a letter from my probation officer. I don't know if I need to give it to you guys.
Circulate it to Commissioner Tomaso first, and then we can pass it around as we discuss this.
So I got out, and my dad, my parents, we kind of went through it when I was doing all this, and they kicked me out, and that's kind of when I went off the deep end. I've slept down here at the homeless shelter. I've come through a lot, and I didn't know where else I was going to go when I was released, so I just showed up on his doorstep, and, sorry.
Is there any personal assault or violence associated with other than the bomb threat? Is there anything that?
No, sir.
Okay. What was your addiction? What was the drug?
Xanax.
Xanax.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vaughn, I have a couple of questions. Are you currently going to any AA, rehab, any kind of thing like that?
No, ma'am. When I was in jail, we had it worked out to where I would go to rehab, and then I don't really know what happened. Somehow it wasn't an option for me, and instead I had to serve the time and then come out of probation, and being locked up for so long made me realize how dumb it was and how much it was a waste of my life to do all that. And with one of the things that really helped me was when I got out on this probation. I think it's a 7% success rate on community corrections or something. And for the first 6 months, I was on house arrest, couldn't leave the house at all except for work. I've been drug tested every week for over 2 years. I finally made it to the last stage, level 5, which I'm free to go out and do things kind of be normal. And I mean, it helped. I needed that when I got out. So I guess it's
How is
kinda
your
like-
support system?
It's good. My family, my mom and dad they've helped me a lot. Like, I wouldn't be here without them. And then, like, with Newton, I mean, I called Tim, I think, every day for 2 months until he finally hired me. But it's just, I've never had a career like this. And it's just, they care about you. They're good. And I found something that, like, gives me meaning. Like, I have fun. I like doing this.
Further questions for Mr. Tyson?
Commissioner Jackson, what happened when you said you got out, you was on probation, and you violated your probation? What triggered that?
When they released me, I never went to probation. So I kind of like, when I got out, I just wasn't ready. I was just still immature and dumb. And then I just went out, and that's when I was like kind of bouncing around downtown and like just crouching on people's couches. And then eventually I got pulled over with somebody, and I knew that I had a warrant for my arrest. So I just told him, I was like, hey, I got a warrant. So that's when I went and did all the whole year. And then I got out in 2017, and I haven't been in trouble since.
How long are you on court-mandated drug testing?
I think the end is 2021. He put it on the piece of paper.
More questions? Would you like for us to hear from someone that you brought with you, or a couple of people? Your potential employer, I guess, would be good.
Good morning, everybody.
Sir.
I'll make this short and sweet. Nick called me for 6 weeks wanting a job. Was up front, told me what he did. I gave him a chance. Everybody's made bad decisions in their past, and I get that. I think he's worth it. I wouldn't be sitting here. I've never been down here. I've been with Newton 7.5 years. If I thought that there was anything he was going to do that was inappropriate with a customer, not taking care of a customer, that was going to make our business look bad, he would not be employed there, period. That's just the way it is. He made some mistakes. He's trying to make it right. I gave him a chance, and I hope that you guys do too.
Anyone else, Mr. Tice, you want us to hear from? Yes, sir. Good
morning, guys.
Good morning, sir.
This is a familiar situation for me. I was here 11 years ago, fresh out of prison, and didn't really have any kind of thoughts about what I wanted to do with my life. And I fell into the industry of selling cars, and I was denied a month later. Well, I had found something that was amazing for me, and so I fought for it, just like you see him fighting for it today. Sorry, I get a little nervous when I speak in front of a group, but he's got the same drive that I did whenever I first started selling cars 11 years ago. And I've never represented anybody before. I've seen people get turned down and just didn't think they were worth it. But this guy here, he was my age, basically, and he's got his family behind him. He's got a great dealership to work for, good reputation. So I love to see him get his sales license today.
You appealed your license here
Yes,
11
sir.
years ago?
That's correct. Yeah, Donna Hancock was the commissioner at the time. Yeah.
Been in the automobile business since then?
I'm sorry?
Have you been continually in the automobile business since that
Yes,
appeal?
I have. Yeah, I couldn't see myself doing anything else.
Good to hear. Congratulations.
I love it. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Further questions? Mr. Tice? Would you like to take action?
I'd like to make a motion we grant the license because of the fact that he has shown that he's paid his debt to society. He's continuing to improve his life, and he has a good support system.
Second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Barker. Is there discussion of the motion? The motion is to grant. Here's no discussion of the motion, so a call for a roll call vote on the motion, and the motion is to grant. Yes will be to grant, no.
Commissioner Levy?
Yes.
Commissioner West?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Murray?
Yes.
Commissioner Melton?
Yes.
Commissioner Tribanian?
Yes.
Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Commissioner Barker,
Yes.
Commissioner Fox,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Vaughn,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kramer,
Yes.
Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Commissioner Tomaso,
Yes.
Chairman Roberts.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Do the comments that accompany the motion by Commissioner Vaughn suffice for reason to?
It was excellent.
Okay, Mr. Tice, congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Good luck
Thank
with your
you.
career.
Thank you.
Hope you're in as long as this other fellow over here. Good luck to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Back Tapp, Mr. Tapp. Good morning, sir. Okay, we're going to hear from the legal department, then we'll get right to you, sir.
Morning, members of the commission. This application was denied due to a felony charge of statutory rape, dropped from statutory rape by an authority figure. The latest date of release, probation, or parole was December 2018, making the 5-year period for consideration December 2023. Additionally, the legals analysis did find that this was related to moral turpitude. The Fresh Start Act specifically exempts out folks that are registered on the sex offenders list, and therefore there's a rebuttable presumption in favor of the commission that a crime in that area relates to the fitness of the person's ability to hold a salesperson's license. As a result, legal's recommendation is based upon the analysis provided above. It is legal's opinion that the commission has a rebuttable presumption that the crime relates to the fitness of a person to hold a salesperson license, and that you do have discretion to deny such applicant based upon his conviction of moral turpitude under the analysis required by the Fresh Start Act.
Tapp, would you describe your felony conviction, what led you there, and who your kind of tell us a little bit about your victim, if you would, please, sir.
Yes, sir. When I was 21, I was talking to someone who was currently 18, and I was also volunteering at a high school where one of the 18-year-old's friends came to us for advice. He had already graduated and was going to college, but the 16-year-old had not, about how to talk to his parents about his life choices. Later on, he talked to his parents about it, and they told him that it was not the way he was raised, that there was no way that that could be, and within the next month, they filed rape charges on me on both people. It kept getting pushed back for 2.5 years. We only do court every 3 months where I'm from. They pushed it back for 2.5 years because no further evidence was ever found until one night I was sitting at dinner where my lawyer called me and said that the older one, who had just turned 21, went to the DA himself, stating that I had never hurt him or harmed him in any way, that he'd never wanted to see me have a life in prison or anything because the original charge had me doing 60 years in a state prison, and that he would do whatever it took to make sure that I didn't get prison time. At that point, the DA called my lawyer and asked that I take a plea to lesser the charges and to not have to go in front of a jury, where I took a blind plea, which lessened that to where the judge would sentence, and he had the choice to do up to 16 years in state prison. I took the blind plea, and I also took a psychosexual evaluation, which I passed completely with no harm to society. And so the judge granted me 1 year of jail, just at a local level, and 3 years of probation. Upon turning myself in, I completed everything and even got to work within 30 days of being there, and I actually got to be released within 8 months. Now, I currently live up here in Clarksville. I still am on state probation. This job was actually recommended to me by my state probation officer. She also, which I sent in with the appeal, she also wrote a letter along with my therapist, who we are required to see once every week, stating that I was upfront with them and honest with them about everything. I've never violated again. I did have a ticket when I was in college, so I can't say that I'd never been in trouble, but other than that ticket and this, I've never had any sort of complications, troubles, run-in with law, anything like that. And so that's when I applied for the job, and I was up front with my general sales manager, who's here today with me, upon interviewing, and they gave me the job until it was denied.
What was the name of the dealership, sir?
Gary Matthews Motors.
Okay. John?
It's
franchise?
Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram.
Chrysler Dodge Jeep, okay.
Members of the commission, the letters that Mr. Tapp mentioned are the last two documents on your iPad for his file. So those are there for your review.
Quick question. I noticed it says the applicant has not provided evidence of rehabilitation. What exactly does that mean?
I think that Liz is answering those purely through like a rehabilitation program is how she's addressing that, because I've also noticed other people have listed other services and that she had listed that they hadn't. So my guess is that's why she had placed that in the memorandum. But that is up to you to determine based on some of the other activities listed here.
The last part, there's a letter from the counseling services. So, Commissioner Vaughn, so you were 21?
Yes, when it all started. The accounts go back to 2013. They were brought to court in 2015 and completed at the end of 16.
So how old was the victim at the time of the incident?
I was 21. The first victim that I was actually talking to was 18, and then the other one that there was never evidence found that I did take a plea for was 16. They are both listed on my charge case as 16, but that's solely for the purpose of parents, like when it was actually submitted, because it was submitted 2 years later in 2015.
Our show's 17.
Oh, 17.
Somewhere. I've lost it.
The judgment for the judgment is dated 2016, so it would make sense if in June. So it would make sense if that the charges were brought in 2015, just from the way criminal court takes.
17.
So, in taking the plea, are you agreeing?
Part of the plea required me to agree to all of them to get the plea. So I had to agree to, there was 13 accounts, and the DA gave me 4 accounts to agree to, and I agreed to those, and the judge only sentenced me to that 1 year and that 3 years on probation.
13 accounts. How many
That's
counts?
what the parents originally tried accusing me of, yes.
Whether you accepted the plea agreement or not, to having an inappropriate relationship with
An
a 16-year-old.
And oh, no, sir.
What are the restrictions, as you are currently on the registered offenders list, sexual offenders list, what are the restrictions regarding a customer comes in with children, and is there a...
The only restriction is that I can't be left alone with them, with a child, as long as their adult is present with them. There's nothing that restricts that, and my probation officer, my group therapist, my general sales manager, general manager, and customer relations manager all know and monitor everything super close. And if there is ever an incident, a parent let their kid accidentally run off, I reported up that same chain to all 5 people, and it be noted at the state of or at a Department of Corrections level that it happened. Because every 6 months I also have a polygraph, which I've also passed all of mine of, asking if I've ever been alone with a minor or tried to purposely be alone with a minor.
Commissioner Jackson, I'm just a little puzzled. I'm trying to put all this together in my mind. Without going deep into your case, what did they allegedly you supposed to have done to this 16-year-old individual?
They accused me of. They just straight accused me of rape. They said that no sex was ever had. You asked me not to go into super detail. I won't. They said no sex was ever had. That it was all just touching. The 16-year-old did write a written statement, which I don't have because it's in the court documents, stating that nothing ever lasted longer than 2 minutes and that I tried stopping it. So. I also do have my general sales manager with me if anyone would like to hear from him.
Considering public safety in this bill, Our job, I guess, is to consider public safety while this individual is in the act of our business. What possible, should we consider just that arena, just that area, or we consider what he does when he goes home?
Fresh Start Act actually gives you a list of really what they want you to consider in the context of providing a license to someone with a felony conviction. And when you read through it, it's on the top of all those memorandums. It doesn't, the whole point of the Fresh Start Act is to tie it to the activities and behavior that would be associated with the business while they're on the clock. You can glean that also from the intent of the statute in itself, but also the factors given. It has to do with relationship between the crime and the occupation, profession, business, or trade, relationship between the crime and the ability or fitness to perform the duties of the occupation, business, or trade, evidence of rehabilitation that would mitigate against the relationship of the crime to the job, and any applicable federal laws and individuals' participation in the occupation, business, or trade, any federal laws that might be encountering that. So the Fresh Start Act really is there to say, is really asking this commission to make a determination on whether the crime, looking at these factors, talking through these factors, whether that crime would impact a consumer's safety if this individual is allowed into the industry. Doesn't necessarily list out any factors that include someone's personal life or personal choices. We did the analysis to say that in the legal analysis, we did say there's at least there is a tie to moral turpitude in this. First, because the legislators expressly took out expressly listed that a crime that involves someone ultimately being on a registry, at the sex offender registry, would have a rebuttable presumption that that's tied to fitness of ability to do a job in multiple fields. That does not mean that it's for you to talk through the factors. It's just a rebuttable presumption. So that means we're going to assume it has a level of connection to the occupation, but you can rebut that with evidence through the discussion of the factors. So that doesn't mean that is conclusive. But more than that, because the charge was amended from statutory rape by an authority figure down to statutory rape through the appeal process, there is more, there's an idea that there's an abuse of power here, and so that could tenuously tie to a consumer, employer, employee, or salesperson, consumer scenario. But it's up to you to look through those factors and determine whether you believe there's an impact on this individual's ability to do any of our individuals here to do their job based on that conviction. So,
I would think in the scope of this work that exposure to minors would be wouldn't be a lot of occurrence of exposure to minors, I wouldn't think, as opposed to someone minors as consumers. I don't know if we're to consider that or not.
Absolutely. In fact, that would fit right into some of the factors that the Fresh Start sets out.
I'm glad, Commissioner Jackson, I'm glad you brought that up, Chairman Robert, because that was back of my mind thinking about in order to do his job, what kind of contact would he be in with the children and that type of business, normally adults that he would be in contact with. That was my concern too. But I got a better picture of it. Life is tough. Tough. I'd like to hear from his general manager.
Yes, of course. General Sales Manager would like to address the commission on behalf of Mr.
Good morning. My name is Steve Barrios, and I'm the General Sales Manager at Gary Matthews. I've been in the business for 47 years, and I've hired dealers, general managers, all kinds of different personnel for dealerships. When I hired Zach, I put him through his pace, and it wasn't just my evaluation that hired him. My 3 managers came forth and interviewed him, and I told Zach, I said, if one of them has reservations about your employment, you will not be hired at this dealership. We all got together after he left, and all of us came up with the same assumption, and I hope you do, that, people make mistakes, okay? We employed him and watched him. There was not one incident. Matter of fact, people came up to me and told me what a pleasure it was to be around him. We did monitor him throughout his process, his selling process, so we had no problems employing him. When this came up, that his license had been expired, we offered him another job until this situation was resolved, and he had chose not to because he wanted to stay on the sales force. So we told him, and we got together as a management team and said, do we want this individual as part of our organization, and are we going to step up for him, or are we just going to let him flounder? Well, we elected to step up, and that's why I'm here today, because I want to help a young man that wants to get his life and prioritize in the right direction, and that's what we're trying to do here today. Get him his license. He has got a natural ability. He is very fun-loving. He does a good job with selling automobiles. He knows his product. He comes to work on time, and we didn't have a moment's problem. We were taken aback, but then when this came up, the transparency of this situation was up front. We got together as a management group with him, and he told us the exact same thing you were told this morning, and we allowed him to work until his license was denied, and then when that came about, we waited to put this in the hands of the commission, and that's where we're at this morning.
Barrios, any questions?
What job was he doing after, once the denial? What was he doing for the dealership in the?
We offered him a job where he could do paperwork, or he could go into our merchandising as far as the lot, and he chose not to at that point in time. And we told him when this came about that we would be here to represent him, but we offered him immediately a job in our merchandising and detailing of the automobiles. And then he's very sharp. I mean, he's computer orientated, the follow up. But then we looked at that and said, until we hear something from the commission, we don't want him interacting with the clients, and that's where we gave him a decision to either work with us in another capacity or wait till the commission's answer, and that's where we're at.
He's not currently employed then with you guys?
Not right now.
Okay.
Further questions from Mr. Barrios? Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Jackson, I motion that we grant him the license, and my reason is because I think that everybody deserves a second chance. Don't want to get into his what happened, but he seems to be very sincere, and I really like what I heard the general manager. I think see some trust in him. And one of the things that he would not do or won't be doing is having transaction with minors. So that's my reasoning of motion to grant him the license.
Second by Commissioner Vaughn.
Any discussion of the motion? I would add to Commissioner Jackson's consummate professional. His credibility with me. For discussion, chair calls for roll call vote. Yes will be for the motion to grant, and a no would be to deny the appeal.
Commissioner Levy?
Yes.
Commissioner West?
No.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Murray?
Yes.
Commissioner Melton?
No.
Commissioner Chibanian?
No.
Commissioner Lee?
No.
Commissioner Barker?
Yes.
Commissioner Fox?
Yes.
Commissioner Vaughn?
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kramer?
Yes.
Commissioner Evans?
No.
Commissioner Tomaso?
Yes.
Chairman Roberts?
Yes.
Yes. 1, 2, 5 no. Motion carries.
Congratulations, Mr. Tapp.
Thank you. I really
Good luck
appreciate
with
you
your
all.
career. Thank you. Okay, Joshua Evans. Page.
Members of the Commission, Mr. Evans is here today for reporting a robbery, aggravated assault, and aggravated robbery. Those are Class C, C, B felonies. The last date of release, probation, or parole was November 2020. That's the estimated date. And so 5 years out would be 2025, putting us in the 5 years. Additionally, these felonies are linked or have been determined to be tied to moral turpitude based on the violation of public trust. Because based on this analysis, it is legal's opinion that the Commission has the discretion to deny such applicant based upon the conviction of moral turpitude, the 5-year statute, and the analysis under the Fresh Start Act.
Evans, would you briefly tell the Commission how you got into this?
In 1997, I robbed a store. I was 17 years old. Minutes to 8 years. I had to serve a year, was placed on probation. In 2001, I was still involved in some terrible things. I was just going the wrong way. I was involved in a home invasion with a drug dealer, kind of gone wrong, and added 6 years to my 8-year sentence, had to serve a couple of years. I was released in 2004 and violated my probation with a dirty drug test. I was not arrested until 2013 on that violation. 9 years. I mean, life had changed. Prior to being arrested in 2013, I did get a DUI in 2012. I served 4.5 years from 13 till March of this year, and I've of course denied, because of the felonies. Forgive me, I'm a little nervous, and I've been in the car business probably since I was 19 or so, and I'd like to continue doing it as well. It's a family business, so I'm here at Charles Mercy.
I have a question. Was that armed robbery?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. At the store, it was with a baseball bat. Not a gun, but armed.
Commissioner Vaughn, have you been in any trouble since your release? And are you still currently on probation?
Parole, yes,
Parole.
ma'am. I see him. I mean, he's put me at seeing him 6 months. He's been I've done everything I'm supposed to. We'll continue. I have 2 kids full time, single dad. Just thankful.
Are you involved in any sort of AA or anything along those lines?
It'd be hard to find the time.
Okay. How's your support system?
Excellent. Excellent. Couldn't get any better.
Who do you have supporting you?
I have my brother, who's also my boss.
Worked for your brother before? Have you have?
It's been us since '99 together, and we've just grown and grown and grown. And very fortunate that I could even leave prison with a job. It doesn't happen a lot for everybody. And through 4.5 years, we've really grown. I just want to continue doing that. I'm very, very good at it. I enjoy the people. It's just, it's a good gig. You guys have probably done a lot of it.
As far as the time that you did, was there time served after each incident? Or
they gave me time to do, and then probation afterwards. Suspended sentence is what they call it. In 2004, I wasn't ready. I was 24 and still wild as can be. I started having children in 07. Roughly around 06, life had kind of turned a corner for me, and I was growing up. 38 now. Wow, it seems like light years ago, but I'm reminded daily, like now, of what I've been gone through and what I've done. I mean, I did horrendous crimes. They were terrible.
I'm in '97 convicted, and you did some time.
Did a year
there.
then.
I'm sorry.
I did a year then,
Yeah.
and then in 2001, I was involved in robbing a drug dealer. Drugs, the different lifestyle. I wasn't thinking of any future, anything. I was pretty much a thug.
As part of your parole, are you subject to drug testing? No.
At any time, they can show up. You know, they're my boss, really. They come to my house whenever. You know, I try to feed them. They won't even take. You know, you're not allowed to. They can't have anything from you. But have a very good relationship with them, and I don't imagine I'll do anything to violate that.
Commissioner Jackson, I just got one. After you violate your probation in 2004, have you had any other problem after you?
Just the DUI in 2012.
DUI?
Yes, sir.
2012?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jimmy Evans, and I've been in the car business, oh gosh, one way or another forever. I started out as a kid selling Wheels and Deals magazine, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with, and I grew to run that company for 4 years until I left in 01, 02 to pursue the car business full time. Josh has been working with me, for me, legally since he was a kid. The only time he's not been working with me is the times that he's had to go do time. I have watched my brother. Of course, I love my brother. Y'all know that. But I've watched my brother grow, and I get a little emotional because it's amazing. It's just amazing. It's a gift from God. And being here this morning asking for your consideration is a really big deal. I usually don't get nervous talking. I mean, I serve on the Industrial Development Board in Rutherford County, and I also former county commissioner and served on an election commission. So I'm used to serving on many boards and in an elected capacity. And so speaking's not a problem. But when it comes to talking about him and how good he's grown and what a job he does, he treats everybody with the utmost respect and kindness. You know, just gives them a good, warm feeling, and he's sincere about it. Just like trying to feed his parole officer, you know. That parole is a lot different from probation. They don't give you a regular drug test because you can't prepare for it. They just pop it on you on the spot. He's had no issues with that. He's a single father, and he's involved at the PTO at school. And he was when he got picked up this last time. Between the last time, I think it was 04, when he failed that drug test and probation, until 13 or 14 when they picked him up to do this last 4 years, he grew up. I mean, he had lived at the same house for 7 or 8 years. He wasn't dodging the law or dodging his past. And he became when he had kids, he stepped up because he takes care of them kids. And so what we're asking for today is an opportunity to earn a living, to provide for them children. Number one, first and foremost. So if you got any questions of me, I'll be glad to answer them. But sincerely, I'm here today to just let you know that as a dealer owner, and we've got 2 places, and we've had 4, and we're doing 2 right now. And I just want to let you know that I put my name on the line. My word in Rutherford County is my bond, and I've worked hard. I've worked very hard to establish that. And so I put my word and my reputation on the line, whatever's necessary to get Joshua an opportunity. Thank you.
Do you have any equity in these stores, or are they all 100% owned by your brother?
Equity, yes, sir.
Sweat equity. But they're 100% owned by your brother?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Question for Jimmy Evans. So you'll be supervising everything that he does?
Yes, ma'am. 100%. He worked right at my side. When we got the denial this time, he went into the inventory management part, and I tell you, he's cleaned up my inventory. I thought I had it tight, but he's tightened it up. So I'll be under his supervision too, if you know what I mean, because he does a real good job. He's real sharp.
Have you ever come before the Motor Vehicle Commission yourself?
I came here one time for my salesperson, another salesperson at my lot. It's been about 4 or 5 years ago. Y'all approved him, and he's been renewed a couple times. No violations of any kind of law. And so I'm not afraid to give somebody a second chance. But I don't come down here to just give my word for anybody. Because, you know, I'm old school. My word's my bond. And if I lay it out there, I'm responsible 100%. It's not on them. It's on me if they step out of line. It means I read them wrong or I just had blind faith. But in this situation and in the one in the past, it's worked out wonderfully with Tom. He's great.
Do you see his children? Your
Oh, yeah, my niece and nephew. Oh, yeah, they come over on Saturday. I food with chickens. And, and, yeah, I got some exotic chickens. And I got a few
I'm not even sure what that
laying
means.
hens. His little girl, she'll chase them
Exotic
chickens.
They sound delicious.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Well, we get about 35 eggs a day, so organic free-range eggs, by the way, if I don't want to provide any of his bribery, but it can be made available. $3 whole you can get for them, and the darn egg carton's 59 cents a track supply. So, I mean, there's no money in chickens, but the kids have a lot of fun, and his little girl ain't afraid of none of them. I say, get that right there. Boy, she'll. Anyway, it ought to be on video.
The reason I want to tell my fellow commissioners, the reason why I asked if he sees his, you said niece and nephew?
Yes, sir.
Is because I felt like if he's going to watch his brother even more carefully because of those children, if he's got that personal relationship with them. So,
yeah,
that's.
Make a motion, we grant him his license.
Second that.
Motion to grant by Commissioner Barker.
Second, I'm
seconded
sorry.
By, was it Commissioner Lee? No, Commissioner
Chabanian.
Chabanian. Thank you. All right. Comments or discussion on the motion?
I would like to say the reason why that in a moment I'm going to vote yes is because of the fact that he is being supervised by his brother who has a vested interest in the niece and nephew, and I do feel like he has served his time and is continuing to do so. Sorry, go ahead.
Chair calls for a roll call vote on the motion. Motion to grant would be a yes vote, and to not grant would be a no. Commissioner Shaw.
Commissioner Levy?
Yes.
Commissioner West?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Murray?
Yes.
Commissioner Melton?
Yes.
Commissioner Chabanian?
Yes.
Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Commissioner Barker?
Yes.
Commissioner Fox?
Yes.
Commissioner Vaughn?
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kramer?
Yes.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Commissioner Tomaso?
Yes.
Chairman Roberts? Motion carries.
Thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you.
Passed on this as I should be. I'll be right with you. Okay. Charles Ryan Lewis.
Morning.
We'll be right with you. We're going to hear from Ms. Page, legal. And
Mr. Lewis is here for informing us of disorderly conduct, facilitation of attempted second-degree murder, reckless endangerment with a deadly weapon involved, and possession of a weapon with intent to employ in an offense. It's a Class C misdemeanor, a Class C felony, a Class E felony, and a Class A misdemeanor, respectively. The last date of release, probation or parole, was August 2020, so that puts our 5 years out to August 2025. Based on the analysis done by legal, several of these convictions do involve moral turpitude, and therefore this commission does have the discretion to deny an application based on the factors under the Fresh Start Act as well as the 5-year statute within the Motor Vehicle Commission laws.
Let's tell us about
Yes, sir.
your
When I
state
was,
of mind when you did these things.
yes, sir. When I was 18, I was with a bad group of people. We got in fighting with another group of people. We all left out. I was driving a vehicle. I had a friend at the time with me. The people that we had been into it with pulled up in their car next to us while riding down the road, and the guy in the passenger seat shot their car. And because it was 4 people in that car, it gave us all these charges, and I signed for the facilitation on the plea agreement. This happened in 2008. I signed for it in 2009. When it happened, I'd been 18 for 2 weeks. I'm 29 now. Just had a newborn baby. Just bought a house. I'm engaged. Just trying to get my sales license, support my family. I've worked at Car Lot Nissan here since I got out. Started in the detail department, quick lube, parts. I did everything, and now I'm just looking for a better career, something I can make this my life. It's what I love to do, and I was young. I messed up, put myself in bad situations, made poor decisions. I'm not that guy anymore. It was over 10 years ago. Now I'm just looking to support my family.
These two groups. You're in a group, and somebody in your group shot at another group that's in another car. Are these gangs?
Just high school friends, really. No gangs. I've never been associated with any gangs. Just high school.
How long have you been detailing cars at
Let's see, since 2012, I think. Yes, sir. That's all I've ever known is cars. I don't.
You're buying a house.
Yes, sir. I just purchased a house literally 2 weeks ago. I'm still moving in. Owner financing.
Questions from the commissioner?
Commissioner Vaughn, I have a question or two. Have you been in any trouble at all since this incident?
Ma'am, I've been out a year and a half. I've been home, no issues whatsoever. I'm a minimum trustee from parole. I go once every 3 months. I haven't had any issues whatsoever.
They require drug testing?
They do randoms, but because I'm trustee level, they do it, I think, once every 6 months, give or take.
Did the dealership do a drug test and a background check on you before you were hired?
Yes, ma'am. I was up front.
And they're aware of everything?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I do have my general manager, Stephen Wells, with me.
Mr. Wells, would you like to address the commission?
Yes. I took over the store 7 months ago, and as part of it, you begin to assess the people that are there and the skill sets. Mr. Lewis was my lot manager, and when I first came in 25 years, I've not seen a lot that was as straight and precise and clean as this lot was. I actually have the store in Jackson, I had the store in Tupelo, Mississippi also. And I was trying to figure out a way to utilize him in both locations, but he does so much in the one Jackson store that it was impossible. But watching him, giving him more tasks, I realized there was a lot of potential with this young man. Detailing cars and moving cars and keeping the lot straight was, the lowest thing that he really was capable of, because he's got so many more skills. So I had a parts driver who had a heart attack, and we were going to hire an outside company to come in and deliver parts. And so I said, let's try it. So we put him to delivering parts. He did a phenomenal job. Everybody loved it. Everything was seamless. And I said, well, now let's let him do the bank deposits. So I started letting him do the bank deposits. And everything was absolutely perfect. Then I brought him with me as far as he works with me to get the wholesales ready to go to the auction. He helps me get my used cars ready for the lot and dealing with vendors and everything else. And the skill set is just amazing. I mean, we sit down, we spend several hours. I show him several things. I don't ever have to show him again. I mean, it's just natural. He's got it. He does whatever I ask. He works 6 days a week. which I give him a day off, but he won't take it. He's always there. Just a phenomenal employee. And we've had, extensive talks about what happened in his past. I know what happened in his past. He was young. He made a mistake. And he's paid for it. And he has just bought a house. He just had the same weekend he bought a house, his daughter was born. He's got his life together. He's ready to move on to the next step, and I've got a lot of plans for this young man if we can get him to the next level.
I'd like to make a motion that we grant the license based on the fact that he has not been in any trouble. He obviously has paid his debt to society, and he has a manager that's going to make sure nothing happens.
Commissioner Jackson, second it.
Discussion of the motion.
Commissioner Levy?
Yes.
Commissioner West?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Murray?
Yes.
Commissioner Melton?
Yes.
Commissioner Tribanian?
Yes.
Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Commissioner Barker?
Yes.
Commissioner Fox?
Yes.
Commissioner Vaughn?
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kramer?
Yes.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Commissioner Tomaso?
Yes.
Chairman Roberts?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank y'all very much.
Good luck with your career. Chase, Baltimore.
Members of the Commission, Mr. Baltimore is here for Class D felonies related to conspiracy and aggravated burglary. The latest release date and probation of parole was March 2018, putting the 5-year period at March 2023. And our analysis does indicate that these felonies are related to moral turpitude based on the violation of a person's, what's this he wrote, directly related to the applicant's fitness to practice within the profession because the applicant was involved in a conspiracy to commit a felony which in someone's home without the effective consent of a property owner, violating a public trust agreement. Based upon the analysis provided above, its legal opinion, the Commission has the discretion to deny such applicant based upon the conviction of moral turpitude under the analysis required by Fresh Start, as well as the 5-year statute in the motor vehicle laws.
Would you like to comment on
Yes, sir.
what brings you here today?
I was 22 years old. I was going through a divorce. Was young, stupid. Signed up for the military, and we had put a hold on everything. So I resorted back to being stupid. Started selling some little weed, and a guy ended up owing me about $250 around Christmas time. Told me to pretty much get lost. Pride got in the way. So I paid two friends of mine to pay the guy a visit, and they ended up getting hemmed up and rolling over on me. About 6 months later, they had both wrote a statement on me. And I'm not trying to play the severity of the case down by no means at all. We made a terrible mistake. And I paid for it, spent a lot of money, lost a lot of time with my daughter. I met a lot of great people in the process, though. I guess they say when God has to knock you all the way down to get you to listen to him. There's definitely some truth behind that. I come out of jail. I met a multi-million-dollar home remodel CEO of a guy. Put me under his wing for about 2 years, and then I went to manage his warehouse in Spring Hill for about a year, and met a young lady who sold thousands and thousands of dollars a month worth of tile, and said I had a niche for people and I needed to go try to sell. And just so happened I was scrolling through Facebook, and a buddy of mine said, any hard workers want to work, whatever, come find me if you think you can sell a product. I remember selling like Omaha meats and stuff like that when I was 16, 17 years old, and we made pretty good money in the summer. So I went down to Newton Chevrolet. I was like, I'll give it a shot. I was like, it can't be that hard. And just fell in love with it within, I don't know, probably after my training period and all the good stuff you have to do for GM to get certified to sell. I mean, I sold 15 cars a month. Man, the first couple of months I was there and just absolutely loved it. Wouldn't want to do anything else. Actually tried leaving to go do something else and just come back, man, and called my name. I mean, I'll put the mercy in y'all's hands. And I just want to get a license, man, and move on and let the past be in the past and just move forward.
Who would be your supervisor at Newton? Newton Chevrolet's in Shelbyville?
Yes, sir. Mike Abonanza, the owner, was supposed to be here, but the hurricane, he's got a lot of property down here on the Panhandle. I guess it's a lot, they're down there taking care of some property damages and things like that. Tim Stevens, I think Mike actually wrote me a note. Maybe it may be in y'all's docket, or this happened really quick. I just got this all happened like 2 weeks ago. A week and a half ago, Mike wrote the letter, sent it in. I wrote a letter, but it never even got sent in because the guy who sent our paperwork in just did everything like.
Are you working now?
Yes, sir, I am.
Are you working
I stepped away. We were going to do our ride where I was doing half deals and closing deals, and they didn't want me on the paperwork at all. So I just went out and did self-marketing the last 8 or 9 days. I've made pretty good money the last few months, so I mean, I really don't have to take my draw at the point in time.
Telemarketing outside the automobile business?
Sir.
Is that telemarketing outside of the automobile business?
Just handing out cars in general, just reaching out to the community and touching base, just putting my face out there with folks.
Self-marketing.
Just self-marketing, yes, sir.
Sales marketing?
Just self-marketing.
Self-marketing.
Self-marketing, I'm sorry, sir.
Sorry about that. I agree that problem's with my ears, not your presentation. Okay, I heard something about you signed up with the military.
Yes,
then
sir.
You put something on hold.
At the time when I had signed up, I passed everything. Had been set a date aside to go finish up, wrap up everything, get on the bus, and the pretty much recruiter called me within a couple months and said, "Hey man, we're putting everything off. I guess the president had put a hold on any military surplus going in boot camp, out of boot camp, coming in, coming out." I'm not really sure what had happened.
So the Army, what Army?
That's the Navy.
Navy, okay. They put you on hold?
Yes, sir.
Is that due to a drug problem, or is
No. This was, literally, I trained for probably 3 or 4 months, went and took the test, did everything, and the president had put a hold in general of taking anybody in the military at all, as far as the numbers they could bring in every month or whatnot. I'm not really sure. This is some years ago. From the way I understood, what my recruiter said, they couldn't take anybody in for 6 months. And then it would be 6 more months, and it would be 6 more months, where they were taking them in every 2 months to 3 months. They were taking in so many people from Tennessee.
prior to being sworn in, or how's that work now?
No, I wasn't sworn in yet. All I had did was taking the ASVAB and the physical. No job selection or anything like that yet.
Commissioner Vaughn, I'll ask that normal questions. So you haven't been in trouble since this happened? And what my understanding is, you paid 2 people to go beat up somebody that owed you $250. Is that the general gist, or did
yes,
you pay
ma'am.
him
Yes, ma'am. That's the gist of it.
What year was that?
2013.
Not loaning any more money.
Sir?
You're not still in the business of loaning money.
No, sir. No, I stepped away from all that.
I wouldn't want to borrow something from you.
As part of your release, did you have to do any kind of mandatory drug testing?
I did.
Rehab?
I was the guy that was on the community corrections here. I just finished all that about 2.5, 3 years ago. Then I got put on state probation. I had so many community service hours. And my main goal, when I got out of all this, was it's kind of like most people want to go to construction field and hide from society. I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to kind of be the opposite of that, and show you can be a figure in your community and in society in general, even if you do make a mistake. I mean, no, like I said, I wasn't playing anything down by what I did. And I'm not going to go into a long period of time. But if some things were different, we were in a different state, the crime probably wouldn't have took place. Some things would have went a little differently. But unfortunately, we're not. And that was one of the reasons they they kind of hit me hard in the court system. for
Did that
time.
all happen in the community that you live in? Because you live in what, Wartrace or?
No, ma'am. It happened in Lewisburg at the time. That was where I was living at. And I moved out towards the Wartrace, Murfreesboro area. to get
How's
closer
your
to-
support system?
It's good. I have my daughter every weekend, or as much as I can get her, and I'm always working. I'm working when I'm not working. So, I mean, and I go to the gym. I'm at a gym all the time. I go to church, and I mean, it's kind of crazy. You see the person that come in to buy a car from you a couple weeks ago, and then you go to church with them. So it's a little weary feeling sometimes, but it's cool. I enjoy it.
When you had this guy beaten up on were you loan sharking, or is this a personal friend?
No. It was a gentleman I dealt with. He'd pretty much just a product didn't go the way it was supposed to, and he owed me some money, and he told me to get lost. And like I said, the money really wasn't the situation. It was just a pride issue. I was young.
Had your customer
Some associates, I guess you could say.
associate?
Yeah.
What would that mean? What?
Just, I mean, two of my friends.
Drug dealer.
Yeah. I was a drug dealer, yes. And I had two of the guys that ran for me.
I couldn't tell if you were in the money lending business or the drug business.
A little bit of both, I guess you could say.
That incident was over drugs, right?
Sorry?
The incident was over drugs, though, correct?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about your support system. You mentioned your daughter, but family, friends, church, just kind of.
I mean, I stay with my dad and my girlfriend. I kind of split it up a little bit. She's a nurse, so she works crazy hours. So when I can stay with her and help her when she has the kids. And if not, my dad just went through a serious divorce probably about a year ago. So I've been helping him out. I go to church with my best friend and teach, do one-on-one drills, basketball drills, and stuff like that on the weekends, like on Sunday nights and things like that. Or the one night I'm off out through the week. So I try to just stay involved in the community in general. Yes, sir.
I have one more question. So do you live in the community where you work?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
So you are you're
Mhm.
not.
I'm probably maybe 20 minutes from where I'm working at. I'm always currently at that.
On that letter from his employer? That was sent in, sir?
I was told by I don't have my phone or anything on me to look at my email. But I was told by David Smith, the guy, the gentleman that got all this stuff in the mail, that he had sent over the fax to that and Mike's letter all in one thing.
Fill out your application.
Me and David Smith did.
It-
No, David Smith's like the human resource guy, maybe accountant. I'm not really sure.
Not anything attached in the file for it. It's possible it's possible it's come in since it has been a short period of time, but it hasn't made it to us yet, unfortunately.
When did you make the application? Or you made the application, and then when did you apply for the appeal?
I applied for the appeal like 9 days ago, something like that. So it could be a good possibility. It just hasn't gotten to y'all yet. If he mailed it.
Bring a copy of it by chance?
Oh, ma'am, I didn't. I'm kind of thrown off that there's nobody actually up here on the last one, to be honest with you.
I have a question for Ms. Page. So on the application summary, the last page, this says a file attachment. There's an image should be there. Could that be it, or?
It's not in the core documents. I'm not sure what that image was. It could have been even just an image from the actual application document. Sometimes it'll save it as an image. In fact, I didn't even have the charging documents, but I found them from a previous application that we've pulled up just now. So unfortunately, what you have is what I have, but that doesn't mean it didn't come in. I hate to verify.
Thank you.
Questions?
Oh, David Smith is the CFO also at Newton, just to let you know.
Action.
Okay, I make I make a motion that we grant the license based on the fact that while I do feel it is a crime of moral turpitude, I don't feel that the consumers of the state of Tennessee are in any sort of danger from this gentleman. So I feel comfortable granting the license.
Commissioner Jackson, I second it.
By Commissioner Vaughn, seconded by Commissioner Jackson to grant the license. My comment is just concern for are we following instructions? The application process and the appeal process seems to be a little haphazard. Best prepared person that we've seen here today in that regard. So, prepared by anyone else, but that's my interpretation. Comments? Okay. Motion then to grant the license. A yes vote would grant the license, of course. A no vote would deny. Ms. Shaw, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Levy?
Yes.
Commissioner West?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Murray?
Yes.
Commissioner Melton?
Yes.
Commissioner Chibanian?
Yes.
Commissioner Lee?
No.
Commissioner Barker?
Yes.
Commissioner Fox?
Yes.
Commissioner Vaughn?
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kramer?
Yes.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Commissioner Tomaso?
Yes.
Chairman Roberts?
Oh,
Motion carries.
okay. Mr. Baltimore, congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Good
Y'all
luck
have
in
a
your
good one.
career. All the appeals, Ms. Shaw?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, we're ready for the director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll begin by basically giving the statistics since last time. Since the last commission meeting, we've had the following activity. Dealers opened or relocated since last quarter, 69. Active license as of July 10, 2018, 3,791. Applications in process, 21. Distributors, manufacturers, 138. Auctions, 30. Representatives, 625. Salespersons, 17,030. Dismantlers, 266. RV dealers, 38. RV manufacturers, 73. And car show permits, 7. The complaints reported, opened, or complaints from June until August 2018. Number of complaints open, 113. Number of complaints closed, 135. Annual sales reports for the last calendar year reported that 1,387,890 vehicles were sold. Recreational vehicles sold, 8,385. Total online annual sales reports collected, 3,365. Late annual sales reports, collections from those were 996 reports at $99,600. Performance metrics taken from our June CFG report, average number of days for licensure. We average around 3 days. On this report, it shows an average of 2.72 days. Productivity factor at 215.4%. The CFG goal at 216%. Compliance on time is 91.65 as of August 31, 2018. And the customer satisfaction rating for Motor Vehicle Commission from May 1 to October 2nd was 98.6%. Disciplinary action report, June to August. Total collected $25,231. Online adoption across all professions is, at last reporting, was at 82.3% of all 1010, which that's new applicants as of September 27th, 2018. Fiscal information, which we reported out on earlier, was that as of August 2018, the MVC is at a $51,566 deficit. Outreach, I have a pretty good list of outreach, which has kept me busy since the last cycle. I continue to participate in the American Association of Motor Vehicle Commissions, Motor Vehicle Administration Internet Vehicle Sales Working Group. Also attended the National Association for Motor Vehicle Boards and Commissions conference in September, and I was elected president at that time. I have kind of traveled the state, several auto auctions, been trying to reach the dealers with the news and changes in the rules and regulations through the auto auction. So I've spoke at several of the auto auctions across the state, which has really been very productive. It gives me a chance to interface directly with those, with the dealers. And when I'm in the area, I usually try to just drop in on a dealer and visit them as well, and have some interface with them at the same time, and so I can kind of keep a pulse on what's going on out there in the field and hear what's going on. And we've had several press releases lately. We've had internet vehicle, fraudulent internet sales activity where they've cloned vehicle sites, and so what we've found that we can do with that is a twofold thing: is a press release which alerts consumers if it is a fraudulent business being advertised, so they can Google it, which we have had consumers contact us in the past and thank us for that. They were about ready to wire the money to a bogus business. And what it also does is it documents something in the file for that particular legitimate dealer who has nothing to do or is not associated with this fraudulent activity at all, in the event that the consumers file complaints against that dealer. It defrauds the dealer, it defrauds the consumer. It's very concerning activity. But we have had some press releases on that. We've ran several press releases on the potential for flood damaged vehicles to be coming into Tennessee, and I can say we really be on the lookout for those. If you are not using the Nvidia system in addition to any other title search system that you have, be checking those very closely. Tennessee is a very high risk state to have flood vehicles coming into the area, so be sure to be mindful of that yourselves and anyone else. But we have included that information in the press release. That's a national database that's funded and supported through the Department of Justice that insurance companies report into. We have also partnered with the Federal Trade Commission. They have a lot of public car buying tips, information for the consuming public to distribute. Those materials we have worked with the Department of Safety to get their videos in both English and Spanish into the driver's license stations. We have handout materials that we've distributed along with the support of the field and enforcement staff across the state into the county clerk's offices, trying to reach the consuming public to make them better prepared and better aware and what to look out for when they're purchasing vehicles. That's pretty much it. I was in a meeting last week with the American. I was also selected to serve on the standing committee with the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators, and I was in D.C. with that last week. So we're getting a lot of involvement at the national level, and it's been very rewarding and enlightening for me. So I hope to bring that back to Tennessee and to this commission and to the consumers in this state and keep us ahead of the curve as much as possible.
Oh, that's great. That'll be nice to, I guess, learn best practices too from everybody else. That's great.
Yeah, we're actually a lot of our practices and the feedback into the development of the best practices. We get to learn, but there's a lot of things that the other states are really being excited about learning from us.
Fantastic.
So
I'm not surprised.
Good report, Director Shaw. And The participation that Director Shaw shows in helping consumers, being proactive, is very important work. And congratulations on her being elected president for the National Association of Motor Vehicle Boards and Commissions. That's quite a recognition there. Well, I let the cat out of the bag on me. I was saving some of this for the January meeting.
I'm sorry. I'm sure there'll be more to report then, because it seems like I've caught the tail of a comet or something. I don't know.
I once told Director Shaw that I didn't like surprises. She took me to heart. So, but it is a great honor on her part, and we'll mention that again later. The new vehicles, the vehicle sales that I saw at $1,387,890. That's new and used, I suppose.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and
that's just the vehicles. That's if you add the RVs in with it, it's a higher number. So we've got them separated out, the recreational vehicle sold from the passenger motor vehicle. So you would have a higher number.
And the average number of days to license at 2.72 days. Can't we go a little faster? I mean, like same day.
Unfortunately, I don't think so. No, I think we've about maxed out. So we panic. I think the metric that's put on us is, what, 7 days? A 7-day metric. And I will have to brag on the staff, because what I ask them to do is look at what our target is and beat it by 1. Always beat it by 1. And they continually surprise me. They just, if they beat it by 1, then they have to beat themselves by whatever that number was. So they're very good.
I've observed that myself. I have seen that number drop from 5 to 2.72. I don't know if we can go any faster than that, but that's great work. Congratulations.
I think that. Thank you. I think it'd be unrealistic to ask them for that. They might snap. I won't ask them.
Jason, can you kick it up a little bit?
I'll do my best.
A little faster. Get this down to a couple of minutes. Okay. Any comments or questions about the director's report? Would there be a motion to approve then?
Commissioner Jackson, motion to approve the director's report.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Jackson, seconded by Commissioner Vaughn to approve the director's report. We'll just do this by voice vote. Those in favor of the motion to approve the director's report, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Five-minute break.
We'll take a 5-minute. Give me that long to get the agenda straightened out anyway. Okay. We're ready for the legal report. Ms. Chairman Jackson handles that, and we'll let him.
We had a productive meeting this morning on the legal report, and I have to say that the staff is doing a fantastic job. Just had a few clarity on some cases, and I don't know if Attorney Page have anything she'd like to say.
No, if there's any additional questions on the legal report, Shalene and I are here to take those if you'd like. And then we do have an update to how we are doing things, so I want to let Shalene talk to you all about that.
Commission members, I just wanted to let you know that we have a new Deputy General Counsel, Mark Green. Michael Driver has joined the Insurance Division, I believe, as the Director of Investigations. And we've shifted a little bit of the boards around and changed a little bit of the structuring. We've had one attorney move up to insurance as well. So this will be my last commission meeting with you guys, and it's been a sincere pleasure, and I've enjoyed working with each and every one of you. I still will be here appearing before you for hearings. I'll be doing only prosecutions, bringing the formal hearings before all the boards and commissions for regulatory boards. So I just wanted to give you an update on that.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your work here as well.
That said and done, Chairman, I make a motion to we adopt the legal report for October 15, 2018.
Second, Commissioner Vaughn.
Motion to approve, Commissioner Jackson, seconded by Commissioner Vaughn. Those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Legislative update, are you doing that one, Ms. Page, this morning?
At this point, we actually don't have one for you. Everything's just rolling forward for next year. Like I said, the major thing was we do have the online salvage rebuilt up and active now, so that's awesome. But otherwise, it's quiet. There's some things that everyone's tracking, but nothing that we've taken any formal stances on. So, simple.
Do we need to approve that?
No.
That's not a report, so we don't approve that. Committee reports, Rules Committee, Chairman Vaughn.
We met today and went over a few different things, and actually, Ms. Page, if you want to give the commission
Sure, I'd be happy to. Today we brought forth a set of red line rules for you all to review. They're on your iPad. So I know Liz wanted me to express that any member on the committee or not, if you have any input into any of the rules, she's always open for feedback, by phone, email. Happy to hear from you. One of the things we looked at was adding the requirement for our applicants to include contact information, a little more updated, getting active emails on the front end from our applicants. So there's a rule we are looking to add there. Chairman Roberts made a suggestion that we include fax numbers, and I also heard a little bit from the members that we may also want to add a secondary contact, a second best possibility. That wasn't a formal motion, but I will bring that to Liz to see if she wants to tweak that rule to bring back to you for discussion. But there's nothing to vote on that one unless the full body'd like to talk about it. Would you want me to go through all of them, Commissioner Vaughn, and then if you all want to discuss anything in particular, or would you want to go kind of rule by rule?
I think just a brief overview would
Sure.
probably be fine. One thing, although I definitely wanted to, the next thing that's coming up with where it's, I don't know if you're looking at your forms or not, but it says add rules requiring dealers to be present for salesperson appeal ? Well, our concern was, what about like this last person that came through was a perfect example of. It would have been nice to have a form from the dealership, the dealer and or the operator to say yes. This person is, is an employee that I would like to hire as a salesperson, and give it maybe like a 7-day window that they could send in a form. So if somebody does not appear with them, we know that this is still somebody they want to hire. They're aware of the fact that they've come to the commission. So that was the only issue, the only thing that we really had a big, huge discussion about today. So, but please go ahead. I just wanted to.
Well, that's perfect. Commissioner Vaughn nailed that. I think what we intend to do is propose a set of rules for you. We'll work with Liz to draft up a set of rules to review and look at for your discussion that will go over what a form might look like and what some of the requirements we may want to put there to address exactly that concern. I think it was well reflected today in the discussion with our denials, that need. The third thing we talked about is the reasonable time to produce business records. That's the .11 rule number 2. We had a proposal that we change producing business records within a reasonable time to an actual defined time limit. The proposal from the professional associations was 30 days with the ability to submit in writing for an extension. After discussion and me sharing some of my concerns from a disciplinary standpoint, the committee did vote to not change that rule. So to leave it the same and leave the board with the open, reasonable time as the language in the rule. And so that's something, if this board commission would like, we can leave it as is. There's nothing we can leave it as is really without taking any action because that's how they are now. And the final section was an attempt to refine a little bit what we look for in our facilities when we have two separate owned businesses that are not both either a dealer or an incidental business to the dealership. Right now you have to seal doors between buildings, have a permanent wall between them. An example I thought of in the meantime was we have some very small, like golf cart production people who will do a dealer, but then they also do specialty builds, and there's been some question whether they need to be physically divided, even though they're in one big warehouse, really. That instead of having that had to be sealed, it would be a locked door. And the committee requested that legal look into refining that language, I think really with specifically looking to add in language about who can utilize the door, things like that. And maybe we can try to bring some examples of both sides of the conversation of why the door is necessary and what businesses, what harm or not or benefit there might be for consumers. So that's the summary for the rules. I'm going to get with Liz, of course, when she comes back and go through these. And if you all have any proposals for these to be changed, modified, we're always open. Or if you don't want to do them at all, there's always fine too. So it's up to you.
Great, thank you very much.
Any questions or comments on the rules as discussed? Motion to approve the Rule Committee report. Moved by Commissioner Chobanian and seconded by Commissioner Lee. Comments on the motion? Hearing none, chair calls for roll call vote. Yes will be to approve the motion. Those in favor of the motion to approve the Rules Committee report, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, would you say no? Motion carries. Audit Committee met this morning. That was with Commissioner Elton, Commissioner Barker, and myself. That's it this morning. There was a presentation by Assistant Deputy Commissioner Carter Lawrence this morning. He's not here now, but he brought us up to date on the information available. The final closeout numbers were not available yet. We thought they would be ready this morning, but they're not for the fiscal year 17-18. They're as we've discussed throughout the latter part of the fiscal year, the commission is in the red. Number is going to be about 173. Director Shaw, is that about right? 173. We won't know that until we get the final numbers from Commissioner Lawrence. There is a cycle that takes place. Revenue generally every other year and increases. This coming year, that would be fiscal year 2018, 2019, should be the year where we have a bump in revenue from licenses and license renewals and license. Can't tell that yet so far this year. We did have numbers from July and August oncoming fiscal year. It didn't demonstrate that yet. There is some concern, I think, by the audit committee of trajectory where we're headed with these. Expenses seem to stay where they are, and revenue has not done to catch up with our budget. Would that be an accurate depiction? So that said, we'll hope that the numbers get back on track for revenue. I appointed Commissioner Melton to be the chairman of that committee, replacing Clayton, who retired, and she is going to ask for the final numbers, and the committee will meet by teleconference at a date to be determined by Chairman Melton and Ms. Shaw. Anything else I need to add? I have to add to that. Any questions for our committee, for this committee? Is there a motion to approve the audit committee report?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Parker. No, sorry. Was there a second?
Second, West.
Second, Commissioner West. Questions, comments? Hearing none, chair calls for voice vote to on the motion to approve the audit committee report. Those in favor of approval say yes. Or, excuse me, say aye. Those for the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Thank you. Motion carries. Business? I'm sorry. Apologize for my lack of skill on the iPad. New business, we'll be sending out new appointments for committee assignments. They come from Ms. Shaw's office shortly, I guess. Anything else on the new business, Ms. Shaw?
The only other thing that I can think of would be that we will be sending the attendance letters out. For those of you who've been on the commission for a while, you're aware of, or familiar with seeing that each year. Right now, all of the commission members are in good standing, so, but we will be sending those out around December timeframe.
Old business? Is there any old business, Ms. Shaw, or anyone on the commission? Old business, my recollection is the next item on the agenda is adjournment. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Move, Commissioner Jackson.
Okay.
Second, Commissioner Vaughn.
All those in favor of adjournment say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Thank you, everyone.
It's so cold, I can't take it.